as you are building your idea, building your business, you are going to get a lot of no's.
I think also what's important is, do you have a story? And what is your story? You really, really have to have meaning behind what you're doing.
We're not asking for charity. We're asking for equality.
Creativity comes from being an outsider. Like, that's where it comes from.
Hey everyone, Emily Vogel here, and welcome to Day 2 of Bee Conference. We kicked things off this morning with a cooking class hosted by actress and activist Justina Adorno on our WrapWomen Instagram page. In case you missed it, go check it out now. But before I fall into a food coma from all that cooking and eating, here are some housekeeping notes for today. In just a few moments, we'll jump into From Script to Screen, Directing and Producing Quality Content, followed by Entrepreneurial Mindset, Building Your Brand, which will be live streamed at 10 a.m. Pacific. Then at 11 a.m., we'll hear from the legendary Cynthia Erivo. In case you aren't able to make it to any of these times, don't worry. All content will be viewable on demand on the BeeCon website listed just below. Here, you can also go back and rewatch all of your favorite moments from day one. Throughout the day, we also invite you to reach out, connect, and chat with one another via our WrapConnect Slack channel. If you've registered for the conference, you should have already received an invitation for this in your inbox. From 12 to 5 p.m. Pacific, our community partners and WrapWomen ambassadors will be hosting Slack channels on various topics, from everything covering screenwriting and producing to boss moms doing it all. It's still not too late to register and upgrade your ticket for access to Day 3, where you will have the opportunity to view over 15 on-demand workshops and join a small group mentorship session with an industry leader presented by Adobe. Register now at the Bee Conference website listed below. We also encourage you to share thoughts and findings on social media. We're using the hashtag BeeCon2021. Feel free to tag us at WrapWomen on Instagram and at @WrapWomen on Twitter. And of course, a huge thank you to our sponsors and community partners. We appreciate all of your support. Now, enough of me talking. Go enjoy today's content.
Thank you, Emily. I'm Sharon Waxman. I'm the editor-in-chief of The Wrap and WrapWomen. So much is changing in entertainment for women. And more than ever, we are seeing opportunity meet the incredible talent that is out there. So to talk about building a career in entertainment as the leading creative force on a television show or a movie, we have brought together a group of unbelievably accomplished showrunners, writers and directors of some of television's most exciting projects. They have individually overcome challenges, leaped over or broken through barriers to put their creative vision out there for the world. I am so excited to bring them to you for our panel, From Script to Screen, Directing and Producing Quality Content. Please welcome Susanne Bier, Marta Kauffman, Janet Mock, and Geeta Patel. Thank you so much for being here. Before we get started, I just want to read a brief, these are much reduced bios, because if I read all of your accomplishments, it would take all day. So just forgive me that I've done a abridged version. Susanne Bier most recently directed the hit HBO limited series The Undoing, starring Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant. In 2018, she directed the thriller Bird Box, starring Sandra Bullock, which at the time became the most watched movie of all time on Netflix. Marta Kauffman is the Emmy and Golden Globe winning television writer and producer and showrunner behind Netflix's Grace and Frankie, and co-creator of the hit series, maybe you heard of it, Friends. She is also the co-founder of the production company OK Goodnight. Janet Mock is a writer, director, and executive producer. I love that, all the support going on here for the FX drama series Pose, which is just coming back for its new season, and the Netflix limited series Hollywood and Monster. In 2019, Mock signed a historic deal with Netflix, making her the first trans person to sign a production deal with a major studio. Geeta Patel most recently directed the final 2 episodes of The Great, starring Elle Fanning. Up next, she will direct HBO's prequel to a small show called Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. Geeta's additional credits include Dead to Me, The Mindy Project, and P-Valley. So quite a room of heavy hitters we got going here. Yes, guys, just please do just like jump on it. Like, right, it's like it's real hard. Yay! Just for you guys. So it all looks easy now that you're doing all these huge shows, but it's never easy to get to where you're at, or even to stay where you're at. So a lot of the people who are watching this conversation are, trying to figure out, how do they get that first break? How do they get a start? So I'd love to hear from each of you kind of how you did make your start, if that's okay. Let me start. Marta, I'm going to start at the far end there. Why don't we start with you? No need to sugarcoat. Tell the truth.
The truth is, you need to have some balls. That's the bottom line. You need to say, this is what I believe I can do, and then you have to do it. And you can't listen to the rules and the standards that everybody else has put out for you. You have to find what is in your heart and do it.
So what did that mean for you?
You know what? It's funny when we first came out to LA, and we met with a bunch of agents, and they said, "This is what you have to do. You have to work on another person's show. You have to do all this." And I thought, I had a baby, and I was like, I don't want to work on someone else's show. I want to work on my own if I'm going to leave my child for that long. And just, thank goodness I had people in my life who believed that could be true and that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's really all about following what's in your heart.
Mm-hmm. So you wrote scripts?
Mentor that.
So practically speaking, what did that mean? You were just writing and pitching, or?
Oh my God, we pitched so much. No, it's a matter of finding the things that are meaningful to you that you can then pitch, that are unique and different from what's already been done.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And to redefine what the sitcom is, or what the half-hour single camera is. You have to constantly redefine it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our job.
Well, Janet, that seems like right up your alley, finding something that other people aren't talking about or doing. But let's take a step back. How did you first break in? You don't start at the top. Nobody does.
I had I think like a lot of us, an untraditional path, right? I had written 2 memoirs after working for a number of years as an editor for People magazine. I left that after writing my books. And I felt, the same thing that Marta said. There was a truth inside of me that I wanted to tell. So I started by telling my own story. And that opened up my life in a way where people could see and interact with my work and take in my storytelling and my voice and my perspective. And that happened to meet, a prolific showrunner like Ryan Murphy, who says and is secretly developing this show called Pose. This is in 2017. I had just finished my 2nd book tour. And I had no plans to work in TV. Maybe film would maybe be me writing or adapting one of my memoirs for some director. I always was like, I'll do the Alice Walker plan, and then I'll go back and write like a novel or something else. Mm-hmm. But I had no plans to really pursue television in this way. And so I took the meeting, not knowing what this general was. I was like, I have to really do a general, like another one, like, okay. And I had a feeling that someone as busy as Ryan it wasn't a general. There were no announcements about Pose or anything in the trade. So I had no intel. And I sat and met with him, And he shared with me that they were writing a show. These 3 cisgender men were writing a show about Black and brown trans women. And they needed a woman in the room. And, you know, they had to find, you know, a unicorn. They needed a Black trans woman specifically to shape these stories. And historically, like we were talking about marginalized folk and women and all of the stuff, they were never given a chance to be in this industry. And I know this clearly, you know, from my own path and experiences of being like a trailblazer and being the first to do this and that, and publish a book and blah, blah, blah. And I knew it was important work. And so I felt it was, for me, a part of my mission to jump in and try to help these guys tell this story right for my people. And all these opportunities came. And really, you know, my ground level in Hollywood would be, I started off as a story editor on the show, not knowing what that meant. I thought I would just do a 20-week contract, go back to my life, write another book, tour that book, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I got promoted to producer the first day that we shot the pilot, because Ryan saw how essential I was to the community and to the women that we cast on this show.
Are you saying that he was like observing you on the set and said?
Yeah, he was observing me on the set. He realized, I think he may have realized that he didn't quite know who I was to the world, like to this community that they were centering this show on. And he was like, I think your voice should carry more weight. Like, obviously it does. And so let's give you the title and the pay that matches that. In the middle of the season, he then said, you just wrote this script with me called Love is a Message, which became my directorial debut. And he was like, you're going to direct this, but first you're going to shadow Gwyneth Horder-Payton, who's one of the greatest television directors. Many people don't know her name, but she's amazing. She's so talented. And I sat with her every day on her 2 episodes. And she gave me all these tips, and she sat with me on my scarier days when I started. But it was through mentorship and connection and people seeing something that really enabled me. But I had to, as Marta said, I had to put myself out there first. I had to tell a story that was important to me.
Well, there's a whole lot to continue digging in just that summary of, because you had a whole career before you even got to Pose, right? But let's come back to that. Susanne, talk about how you started and how you ended up, because you came from Europe. You could have just had your career in Europe, and now you're doing all these enormous shows here, projects.
Well, I came from kind of independent films in Europe, and I came from, I did 15 movies before I started doing television here. But I guess my career sort of pretty much merged into a point where television became, you know, where the sort of intrinsic snobbism that was surrounding television compared to movies went away, and everybody woke up and realized, hey, television isn't just an amazing media where you actually are capable of reaching a huge audience. It's also a media where you can tell stories with details and texture, and it can go on and on and on, and it has a completely different possibility for storytelling, which is hugely interesting, and which I found hugely interesting. But I was kind of wanting to hook onto something Martha said earlier, which was a bit like how do you get to that point? Because it's one thing looking back if you are at a certain point in your career and you can kind of recognize the steps. But if you're a young person wanting to get there, I think in a way, one of the most important things that I've learned was not to be deterred by failure, actually kind of learn from it and kind of move on from it, and not thinking, if you're turned down with things, or if somebody else get the job you wanted, or all those things that I think I want to bet that all 4 of us have experienced that a endless amount of time. And I think that kind of almost embracing this is one of the most important things to take with you and to learn. It's not like any of us have kind of gone, it was just like we just blinked with an eye and it was all there. It's kind of hard work, and it continues being hard work, and it's recognizing that it's up and down.
Well, was there a moment when you had a failure where you thought, well, maybe I shouldn't do this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm actually gonna open that bakery. I'm actually gonna not deal with this insane, crazy world that I don't even, and I'm gonna open this bakery. And then I kind of got interested in another project, and it kind of went away. But absolutely, yeah. And I'm sure I want to guess that the three of the rest of you are gonna have definitely had that moment more than once.
A moment of just saying, I can't anymore.
Every day, no? I'm like
every day. Oh my.
I also, I just came off of shooting our final season of a show during a pandemic. So I'm just like, every day was just like, do we really have to? Like, do we, it was so hard. So that's where my negativity.
We'll come back to that. Geeta, how about you? How did you get your start?
My family's from India, and I always wanted to go to be a storyteller and be in the arts. And my parents both came from a village where, nobody pursued the arts and nobody lived outside any of the box at all. Everything was about money, about feeding your children and your family. And so when we came to America, I was the first one born here. And I think the biggest struggle I've had is with not letting my family down, because I saw what they were going through to give me an education. And also my second struggle was really myself, just never feeling like I had the talent that everyone else around me had, because there's no way, when you're going into medicine or business or whatever, there's a track, you can get a degree, you have some kind of paper that tells you you're worthy. And for me, I've always had low self-esteem. And so, coming up in the arts where you have to believe in yourself, like Marta was saying, that was my biggest, kind of obstacle. And then on top of that, sort of presenting it to my family. So I actually went to a really good school that my parents, were so proud that I was in college. And then
where'd you go?
I went to Duke, and for them, that was a big deal, first one in college. And then I got a job in finance. I went to New York for 2 years. And the whole time I would be analyzing Marta's shows, I would sit there and I would understand plot structure, watch interviews. I mean, I was obsessed with storytelling, and I would write letters to all the writers whose episodes I loved. I have a book of 200 letters. I would just write them letters. I didn't even want anything. And my parents are trying to arrange my marriage the whole time. It was a total, deep show. And so then after about 2 years, and then I would come to LA and I would pretend to be sick at work, and I would meet these people, whoever would meet me, and just listen to them talk about their lives. And it was just so fulfilling to just for a minute glean something from these magical storytellers. And then after about 2 years, my father said, I haven't seen you smile. I can't take this. Just go. I know what you want to do. Just go. And I came to LA. And because I'd written all those letters, one of them had gone to Mimi Leader, and she was doing a television show called Beast at ABC. And she got me a job working as a writer's assistant for the showrunner. So I did that for 2 years. And, from there on, I worked for him doing production rewrites on films.
For who?
Carrie O'Salem.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And I worked for him for another 3 years. And then again, same obstacle. Carrie said to me, Geeta, what are you doing standing behind me everywhere we go? What's your voice, man? I can't make you a writer. I can't make you anything. What are you? And I was like, and again, you're just surrounded by so many talented people, and people who are so sure of themselves, that I just completely closed down. And again, because of this wonderful person nudging me, I went and wrote a novel that sucked, but then the research for the novel sent me to a war zone. And I learned in that time, and being in the Sundance labs, to follow my heart and follow my bliss. And that was when I made it. I realized in that moment that making it was not becoming what we are today on this Zoom call. Making it for me was doing what I love. and being okay with that in that moment and never reaching for anything else. And so I stopped reaching. I stopped reaching for like money one day or all the big houses my friends had at that point. And at one point I'd made this small film about my family that looked like crap. And that film, I was 40 years, I'm 45 now, I was 40. That film got us agents. And then I started working, you know, for lack of a better kind of story to that moment. But it was like, oh, okay, great. But I never felt like I wasn't successful before that because of those kind of lessons.
I'm so intrigued by that because I'm curious about, you know, among the four of us, I know that I have been a victim of my own imposter syndrome. And I feel like that is something that needs to be overcome. Even though, you know, we feel like we are not as good as or as much as, you know, we have all these passions, these things we want to do, but there is this, I certainly feel it, this imposter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? Even now?
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I do now still.
Absolutely.
I give up. You know, I don't know that men have this issue or they don't talk about it. I hear women talking about it a lot. How do
I don't know. I feel like men have it, but they don't talk about it.
Yeah, they don't admit to it. But how do we address this? It's like, what do you?
They're just full of shit. They don't know.
Yeah. I see men being incredibly vulnerable. I think they just don't. They're not as open with it. I actually don't think there's much of a difference between women and men in that way. I just think there are other things, but men are insecure in their own way. And I mean, don't you guys think? I've seen it on set. I've seen it with my coworkers. It's just people are different.
Yes, except what we don't like when it gets channeled into being abusive or putting down other talented people, which sometimes people in positions of power know how to do. So I mean, but we're here, like, let's focus on the positive. There's so many wonderful men. In fact, Geeta, you just mentioned one, and I'm sure there are many people in all your lives who have helped you get a leg up. Janet, you talked about Ryan Murphy. Sounds like he elevated you very quickly in a way that, you know, is absolutely, maybe he felt that was what the project needed, you know, as somebody who just had that, you know, really good instinct. But it also takes us true generosity to say, you're the better person for this, you know. Does anybody want to talk about people who have helped them along? This is a mentorship conference. It's really what we talk about a great deal, is mentorship.
Yeah, I had never had a mentor before.
Wow.
Meeting and
that's heartbreaking.
Working with Ryan. Yeah, you know, I could write, you know, novels about my experience trying to break into magazine publishing as, you know, a low income Black trans woman who had the credentials. I had the undergraduate degree, the NYU J School degree, all of the things, but I still couldn't get a job as an assistant.
Okay, I'm signing up with that one. I'm sorry, because there's like years as a underpaid freelance writer with too many degrees. Yeah, it was a mess. And so meeting someone, and I think this is where the mentor piece did come in for me, is that I think he saw himself in me, his own journey, right? And we connect to people in that way. Yeah, Ryan. And so it was powerful that he was able to see his experience as, you know, a trailblazer, as an out gay man, right? Coming into this industry, trying to run his own shows, directing, writing, being told that his characters are too gay, being told that his voice is, you know, too flamboyant, that he's too much, right? And then he comes and does this show Pose, and he brings all these outsiders who had never worked in this industry in. And I think it was just the fabric of what the show called for, but I think it also speaks to where he was in his career, that he was able to then give, right, and extend and use his access to bring other folks in.
That's our job. I believe that is one of the most important pieces of what we do, is to mentor and to lift up the next generation of artists. That's what we have to do. At some point, I know, look, I'm almost 65 years old. At some point, I'm going to be done. And part of my job is to raise up the assistants and writers' assistants and young writers, and to give them their voice.
Susanne, did you want to talk at all about that?
Well, I'm in a kind of funny situation because my son is 31, and my son is directing his first feature film right now.
Wow.
And so I've been kind of, been with him and his friends, and they've kind of come, and it's this kind of interesting thing. And a lot of his friends are doing the same thing, or some of them are writers, or some of them. And it's been so interesting and incredibly rewarding and exciting, kind of, reading their stuff and like, getting like small little scripts or small storylines, and then suddenly they're all there and they're doing it, and it's kind of amazing.
So you're mentoring him?
I'm not really mentoring him. I'm kind of, with him it's mostly like did you do your washing kind of thing, but with all his friends it's a lot of that. It's a lot of like reading. I am reading his script. I was actually making fun of, but he's also reading mine now, so it has
cool.
Like I'm sending him the scripts that I'm thinking of, and I get a completely different take on it, but a very kind of competent but obviously coming from somewhere completely different. And it's super interesting.
Is there something that you would either go back in time and do or not have done to save yourself either a failure or a detour, or if you look back, would you say, no, I just would have done it this way? And I love your story about the 200 letters. I very much hope you publish them someday, either as an appendix to your memoir or perhaps as the memoir itself. I bet they'd be very interesting reading.
Failure is one of the greatest learning situations that you can have.
Yeah.
Failure sucks beyond words, but what you can learn from failure is such a gift.
All right, so Marta, I'm going to challenge you because that sounds very good in principle, and we hear the Silicon Valley speak as like failure. I failed this big, and then give us an example, because you just look like a glowing success from here. So give us a real example of something that was a failure that you learned from.
Oh, geez, there's so many.
Oh, come on.
There were a number of series that we tried to do that were just dreadful. Dreadful. While we were developing Friends, we were doing other stuff. It was terrible. We did a series with Norman Lear, which was one of those. It was a situation where it was the producers.
In real life.
In real life.
Okay.
We were told we were in a situation we weren't happy about, and we wanted to go back and do Dream On, which is what we were doing at the time. And we were involved in another development thing. And basically, we were told no politics, nothing gay. So we developed a series about a senator with a gay wife trying to do everything we could to make this not happen.
Okay. Got it.
Freaking happened.
I got a green light.
For 2 years, I was in hell.
Because then you had to do it.
But, I learned so much from it. I learned so much from understanding what the difference is between doing what's a good idea and doing what's in my soul.
Mm. And would you say that Grace and Frankie is a show that's in your soul?
Yes, I would. Grace and Frankie is one of those things. Look, I don't know about the ages of the rest of you, but there are many things I was not told about growing older. Dry vaginas. Who told us about that? No one told me.
There's no manual.
There are and there were things. There were things that I felt like I needed to not only understand because of where I am in my life, but the idea that you can start your life at any time, which is what really moved me. The idea that at any point you can start your life over and do something better than you did before.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to admit to a failure in public or among us? It's just among us.
Can I say something which might be distracting, but I do want to say that I think in a way, success is really dangerous. Yeah. I kind of want to turn it around because it messes with you in a potentially really bad way. So I think that's part of the whole image is that it's terrible. I mean, failure is a disaster and it makes you super upset and depressed and everything. But success makes you, first of all, it potentially makes you into an evil human being. Not necessarily, but the potential is really there. You really have to you have to navigate it, not yourself not being a complete arsehole, sorry my language, but also in a kind of different way, it also makes you want to repeat yourself. So artistically, it's a real problem because you have to filter out that thing, which is, I'm going to do this thing that worked again. You have to filter that out. And then you're going to go, what am I really curious about artistically? What I'm really interested in? What is like a real challenge? What actually scares me? Because all of those things are things which is going to make your next piece interesting and exciting. And there's got to be that sense of danger in it. So
yeah, there's this, it's very easy to get cocky.
Yeah.
And the truth is, this is where I go back to the imposter syndrome. We have to continually prove ourselves. At least that's how it feels to me. Mm-hmm. We have to continually prove ourselves. One show or one movie isn't enough. You have to constantly reinvent.
Yeah,
but that's good. I think that's good.
No, I think that is good. Well, I want to talk about doing scary things, which I'm a big believer in. I think fear is something that we all feel every day. I'm constantly saying this little patter of mine because, starting the company that I started, everything was very, very scary, and you just have to do it anyway, despite the fear.
Have you ever looked at a blank page?
Yes, I've written 2 books. And, I'm a journalist, so I look at a blank screen all the time. But I don't have to invent it like you guys do. I just record real stuff. It's certainly much easier, for sure. But to turn it back to you guys, Geeta, you're going to be, after you have this wonderful baby soon, and I hope it all goes with great, not too much pain, and lots of joy for you for that. But you're going to be directing on the Game of Thrones prequel, and I just wanted to ask about doing scary things. That just sounds terrifying. I don't know if it is terrifying to you.
Honestly, I feel like everything I do is terrifying and scary because I'm sure the 3 of you whose work I admire so much, everything we do is new, right? So every project, no one's done that project before. That's the beauty of the arts. It's so symbolic of humanity. You're just walking out in nature and there's all these things that come together to make this, and there's all these things that come together to make this. And so everything I've worked on has been super scary. Working in television is super scary. Going from as an independent filmmaker, making 2 films where I was in charge of everything. My failure was my own. I could deliberately fall on the ground, screw something up, and then come out with something new. It was all in my own watch. To be working in television is a totally different beast for me.
Yeah.
The fact that you are working for other people, you want to make them happy, you want to do a good job. If you don't do a good job, they don't hire you again. But at the same time, you need to make your days and be on time. And, you know, I mean, it's just, there's so many things. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. It's just, there's so much more involved. There's politics, which I've never been good at. You know, like you've got this person doesn't want to work with this person and this person needs this. And oh my God, it's just a completely different thing. So, I mean, I think for me, that's always been really scary. Every single job, you're trying to figure out the lay of the land. And as an episodic director, even more so, because you go in, you know, back when I was doing more of the half-hour comedy, you go in for maybe, what is it? I don't even remember now, like 4 weeks or something. And now with these bigger projects, you know, I'm going to be in London for 6 months for this. But I'm less scared now. I mean, I feel like at a certain point, you just realize the nature of it, you know? So no, I'm actually not scared of this job. I'm more kind of excited. I can't wait. I know that I've always wanted to do this. I went in fighting so hard to get the job. And so, you know, I feel like I've grown up a lot since when I first started. It's so great to be like, this is mine. You know, I think every job before this, or many jobs before this, I felt like I didn't, like what you were saying, Marta, like I felt like I didn't deserve it. Like they're all looking at me saying, well, what's she doing here? And a lot of times they tell you that to your face, especially, I hate to say it, but things are changing now. But as a woman, a lot of times people just tell you that. You know, whether it be...
Has that happened to you, Geeta?
100%. I don't know if any of you have had that, but camera department, sometimes people are just not used to having a female director. A lot of people in the camera department feel, not every camera department, but a lot of times they feel like they should have gotten the job. And why are you here as someone new who's never, you know, when I first started directing television, I didn't know much about the words you use for certain things. I was just someone who had 2 films I made, you know, saying, well, okay, the camera's going to move like this, and then we're going to go up, and then, you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't have all that. So I got quizzed by crew members who wanted to ask me if I knew what something was called, all kinds of stuff. I had actors who didn't sometimes want to work with me, that later, I mean, everyone eventually came around. I think there's a Ted Lasso approach to a lot of this, you know, of just love them and keep going. But it's hard, you know, on the outside you're strong, and on the inside you go home and sometimes you cry in your car. You know, it's tough because it's a tough world. I think that's what, when Marta, when you say keep going, that's what I think of. I think of the moments where people tell you or make you feel like you don't belong where you are, and you have to keep going. You cannot stop. You cannot think, you know, Jan, and I know you were saying this too, like it's just, you have to keep ahead. You get back up every time.
Janet, can you talk a little bit about this, approaching this last season of Pose? What were the biggest challenges to you? And is it, you were saying that it's scary all the time, but I don't know if you meant that or if you're just...
Yeah, there was I started shooting the premiere of Pose last March. And we were shut down after, I think, our 8th day. And we're like, oh, see you in 3 weeks. 7 months later, we came back and we were writing in a different, untraditional way through Zoom, through Google Docs, all this kind of way together, trying to create some semblance of a writer's room chemistry in this new world. And as that's all going on, all the stuff in the world is going on, right? Police brutality, a global pandemic, all of this. And so we're like, we're going to go back to shoot a TV show. And so I think there was a lot of reluctance to that, right? But, you know, the producers, the studio, Disney, everyone just came together and they found how to make it work with the state of New York and the city. And we came back and did it. And, you know, it was weird and awkward at first. And then we got used to wearing masks and shields all the time. And, you know, and just the chemistry with the cast and everything was still there. It was a little like awkward. But I think the pressure for this season was really difficult. You know, Stephen Canals, who co-created the show with Ryan, and I were kind of elevated to be the showrunners this season. And it was a new role for us. And we grew close, and I had a partner in it all. And it was magical, really. It was a great gift. I'm exhausted. You know, I did my last shot like 3 weeks ago on Santa Monica Beach, and we went right into promoting the show and all the cuts and edits and notes and everything that we're still in. And now it's just to press and it's about to come out on Sunday. And we're just like, I don't know how we ended up here, but just piggybacking a little bit on what Geeta said, I and Marta as well with the imposter syndrome, when you're kind of the great, powerful force, as Ryan says, you're going to go direct, and there's all these other people who are sitting in the mentorship chairs and who've been waiting forever, who went to film school and all this stuff in my head. I'm like, yeah, I know the story, I wrote it, but is it right? Like, is there someone else that should be doing this? Like, is there a trans woman who should be coming in who's wanted to do this, And he was like, nope, it's your script, it's your story, you're going to direct it. And so just do it. you know how to communicate, the story, the team. But there was the are you sure you want this? Are you sure this setup, is that where you want the camera? Are you certain? There was a lot of that, just these little micro things that kind of just trickle in. It disappeared after a while because I became who I was but that first season, it was really difficult. Yeah, it's something that still sticks with me, because of the fact that I didn't go to film school and all these things that you can tell yourself, right? And so I think to anyone that's listening to us, it's, there is no clear path to this. You can make your own lane.
Yeah.
You fucking go through and you just hit the wilderness. Like, you just go and you do your work. Do your work. Like, that's your job. Do your work. Show up every day. Show up before everyone else. Sit there, be ready, be prepared, have all your notes, have your perspectives, like have your visuals, whatever you need to help you feel safe, like have that prepared for when you come to the job, and do the absolute most. That's all I can say.
And also collaborate. I mean, one of the things I love about TV in particular is that it's so collaborative. And, the gaffer can have an idea. It's true. That it's such a collaborative process in television, between the writers and the producers and the DP and the director. It's a thrilling process.
I want to ask all of you, because we're coming off of a very, very, very long Oscar season, but we're also coming off a historic Oscar ceremony in which more women went home with Oscars than in any other year. I believe it's something like 17 Oscars, something like 35%, which is really remarkable. And I wondered, just overall, we've noted in sort of the various surveys that we've done at the Wrap that television has been more open to opportunity for women historically than some of these big films. But do you feel the change that we're all talking about all the time? Is it something that's present for you in entertainment? Anybody?
I feel it.
It's about time.
Yeah, I feel it. I think it's wonderful. There's so much, we're still going, we're still changing and moving, but yeah, I personally do. When I'm working on anything right now, it's that those elements I talked about earlier are not really in the room. I don't see them very much. I feel like people just see you as an artist a lot more, and you get to do your job. So I'm having a great time. I feel like, there's always going to be stuff, but a lot of times, that's just life. But I think television is a wonderful place to work right now. And I've seen the change just in my small flight since, beginning to now.
I mean, didn't we just see there was a casting call for a trans character in an animated film? I think Disney might have put this out. I saw it on Twitter. They were actively casting for a trans actor for a voice character, which is something you definitely would not have seen before. I mean, Janet, I'm sure you perceive the change, and you've been a leader in creating that change.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm really buoyed by, the glowing rush of, and even thinking about, department heads, the Mia Neal in hair, and a hairstylist department head for Ma Rainey won last time as well. And she worked on our first 2 seasons of Pose. And I was screaming, and, you know, just knowing the trickle effect of that collaborative nature and the family that you build when you go to these different sets, and seeing her get on that stage and say on that stage during her moment, I imagine a world where Black trans women are up here, Indigenous women are up here, Latina women are up here. And I think that that's important that we say that when we say women, right, that we're actually unpacking and making sure that we're being inclusive in that, that we're being decisive and clear, that we're including all women, right, disabled women, you know, non-English speaking women, undocumented women, and just making sure that we're like, making sure that the people that are winning, that the people whose work is getting greenlit, you know. I know for me as a woman of color and a trans woman in this industry, I still grapple with, you know, oh, are you sure that story's not too niche? Like, is that, maybe the scope should be wider. Maybe you should, you know, my specific experiences that we say that we want to greenlight and all the stories that we want, you know, there's still the second guessing of, is it wide enough? Is it broad enough to bring in? And when they say that, wide enough, they mean white enough. Does it bring in, right? And so for anyone that's listening to us, be very specific. Be the most niche. That's what I will tell you. Be specific, the most niche, and know your perspective. And don't let these executives get into your head and make you think, okay, then I'll write toward this because it's what they're interested in. They don't know what they're interested in until they see it.
I couldn't agree with you more, Janet. I agree with you so much. You know, I think that we need to understand that right now, this is the age of television. There are so many outlets. There's so many ways to express ourselves. And I think this is an opportunity for voices that haven't been heard before.
I love that idea of be niche, you know, the more niche.
Well, you know, I've been here before. I grew up in the 90s, right? In the 90s, there were tons of Black families on television. Name them now, right? This is cyclical. It's trends. It's groupthink still. It doesn't, and so I'm skeptical about it. I'm critical of it. I'm buoyed by it. I'm excited by it. But being in those rooms myself, having these conversations, getting the notes that I get back on certain things sometimes, it's still a struggle.
But what's the but hang on, but the fact that, you know, the women in this are mainly the showrunners or will be showrunners if you're not a showrunner yet, doesn't that make the difference that you're in charge?
Yes, on Pose, on one show. Yeah,
but I do find, like, for example, with casting, like I find, like even in the space between I did Night Manager and Undoing, I felt that there was a huge kind of development in terms of the, you know, of not having to discuss every single diverse casting. Like at this point in time, this time I didn't have to, you know, fight it to the extent that I did previously. So I do think that I do think it's sort of moving. Is it moving fast enough? No. Is it moving specific enough? Also no, but it is moving.
I mean, I certainly take Janet's point, having reported on the industry for as long as I have, and see that there's ups and downs, and there is retrenchment, and people who are in power don't like giving up power. Sorry, that's just a reality of human nature. So I think to Janet's question about the permanence of the shift is something that I think we all have to work for it. You know,
there's also a nuance to it that at least I've seen recently, which is specifically my brother and I have a project, Beat the Patels, and you know it's basically a rom-com about an Indian guy falling in love with a non-Indian woman, right? So then another project came out after ours and we were developing a kind of a remake of ours. Okay, then another project comes out that's about a South Asian man who falls in love with a non-South Asian, and we get calls from the studio who up until this point has loved our project. We've been, you know, going quickly, and we get this call, more than one call, where not just the studio, the producers, everybody are like, "Oh shit, they just scooped us. That's it. It's over."
What?
And here's the thing that we forget: how many rom-coms or television shows or what have you are about a white man and a white woman? Why can you only have one about an Indian man and a non-Indian woman? Like, this is the thinking that it just blows my mind. This just happened not, the last couple of years, and you just feel like, these are people who support our projects, support our work, and say, hey, you are someone from a community we want to represent, we want to tell your story. But then if someone else is from that same community, apparently the story's been told, and yet there are a bazillion of us from that community who we're not all the same, and I hate that it came to a point where we didn't do the project, and everybody was so excited up until that point. So I think we have some work to do in that way. I think, it's just like, oh, there's already been a Black show about strippers. Well, like that's another thing. There's just a lot of conversations I hear where it's like, well, wait a minute. Why can't there be more? I mean, there's been all this for lack of a better word, like just majority Caucasian or one kind of background, let's put it that way, stuff on television and film. And so, no one's saying not to do that, but I just think if we really want to practice what we preach, there are stories to be told from communities more than once, over and over and over and over again. That's all.
Yeah.
But don't you think that what we are fighting is essentially extremely convenient, conventional thinking, and we are fighting something which is like, it's like habitual. It's like, oh, there is, and also it's that desire to make everything into a recognized entity. Okay, so this show is obviously about this.
Yeah.
And how do they know? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, if things are way more specific and way more distinct and way more, and I think it's a profound like ethic thing, but it's also a profound artistic fight that we need to fight, because
and I think it's also a deep conversation about who we say's voice and experiences are centered and seen as universal versus whose isn't. I can't tell you how many times I've had mothers and parents come up to me and say that their heroine is Blanca, a Black and Latina trans woman who is raising these children who've been orphaned. They see themselves in her, but they were like, they always say, I didn't know the show was for me. I didn't know it was a family show. You didn't know it was for you because you saw this cast and you're like, that's not for me. Why is it not for you? Right. And so I just think that we have these biases that are there, and some people have been lifted up and congratulated and given so much space and so many resources to tell multiple stories. And there's so many folks who've been in this industry for a long time, have way more experience than me, who are not working today because of that lack of support and resources. I am buoyed again and optimistic about where we're at and the conversations that are being led and charged, but I would like to see that shift up all the way up the ladder. The gatekeepers, who are the gatekeepers up there making the decisions? What do they look like? Where do they come from? What are their perspectives? What do they care about? And who do they care about? And who will they invest and fight for? So I think it's systemic. It's not a personal thing. I think it's a systemic issue around who we say matters and who should be centered and central.
Yeah, I when we come into contact with so many young people, it's amazing. They're very outspoken. You'll hopefully tune into the next gen panel that we have in this conference. They are extremely clear and intentional about what they expect of the world. It's pretty exciting to listen to them because they expect the world to change, which is, all of you have blazed trails and broken through and persisted through lots of difficulty. I mean, I think we all hope that it will be easier, for the next group coming up from, in the trails that you blazed and with the change that we see. So before we wrap, I want to ask each of you to give one phrase of advice, right? One thing that you would like to leave our viewers with about how to build their career, or a piece of advice that maybe you wish you'd gotten at as you were starting out? Susanne, can we start with you?
Oh no. Don't let anybody mess with your trust in yourself.
Wonderful. Marta?
Follow your heart.
Yes. Janet?
Be unapologetic about who you are, who your people are, who you're showing up for, and tell those stories.
Geeta?
Don't wait for traditional success. Just tell your story with everything you've got. You don't need anybody else.
That's wonderful. Well, there's so many amazing lessons. We talked about imposter syndrome. We talked about embracing failure. We talked about extending mentorship. We talked about doing the work and making your own lane. These are just some notes that I took from you guys. We talked about success being dangerous. There's so many wonderful lessons from each of you. Thank you to Susanne and Marta and Janet and Geeta. Thank you to our audience for tuning in. This was an amazing conversation. I learned so much. I hope everybody else did too. For the rest of today's conversations, you can check out the B Conference website, which is listed below. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Nicole Walters, CEO and founder of Inherit Learning Company and the star of USA Network's She's the Boss. And I am so excited to be here today speaking with an amazing group of women. Now, these women have made a career building strong personal and company brands. So let's bring them out. First up, we have Skinny Confidential founder Lauren Everts Bostic, actor and comedian Lala Milan, entrepreneur, I should say serial entrepreneur, executive producer and star of Bling Empire, Kelly Me Lee, and endlessly elated CEO and founder, Kathleen Pagan. Ladies, I am so excited to have you all here today. Thank you so much.
Oh, our pleasure. Thanks for having us, Nicole. Yeah.
Yes, this is incredible. So the team at WrapWomen, I mean, they are curating an incredible experience here with the B Conference. And today, what we're going to chat about is really what it looks like to build a brand. And that's something that each of you has done and is doing successfully. But what's incredible about the work you're doing is you're not just building personal brands, but you're also building many different entrepreneurial endeavors. You've gone beyond the goal, right? Not just an influencer, not just a face, but so much more than that. So let's dive in. Let's just jump right into it. You guys here for it? Sounds good?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Cool, awesome. So I like to start from the beginning because Instagram, social media, they're so big about showing the shiny finish line. I want to know, what was it like at the beginning? Because all of us had to have a quit day before we got started. So Kelly, I mean, you've had your quit day, I think, came before most of us. You started when you were in your teens, right? So tell us about that. What was it like at the very beginning? What got you to quit?
You know what? I think the story was kind of long where I don't even know. I just started starting my business. I was always a hustler and trying to make it my own at a very young age before I even know the term entrepreneur, right? And, you know, as growing up in the Asian culture, my whole family are doctors. So my mom expected me to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer.
Engineer,
so
that's right.
Yeah, my pressure was really on. I really want to show my mom that I can do it. I can be successful, you know, my own way. I can be successful running businesses and not having to be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer. So, you know, I started at a very young age, and I'm just been really grateful for the experience and all the amazing partners I had throughout the way.
Oh, Kelly, your story is so inspiring to me, and you are so brave. As a first-generation immigrant child myself, my parents are from Ghana, West Africa, and doctor, lawyer, engineer are the options. The media, the industry in Hollywood is worthy of prayer, right? So it's a big deal that not only have we both made it, but you are just thriving, which is incredible. So, Kathleen, tell me, what about your experience? I mean, you are doing so much, and you've created a whole brand that's really curated and customer driven. So, I mean, you act like a pro, you build like a pro, but you started from the beginning. What was that like?
Oh, a journey, that's for sure. I was definitely not your average, same as as both of you, first generation, my parents migrated here from Puerto Rico. Options were the examples I saw, which was you go to college, you get a good job, you buy a house, and you retire. And so for me, it was definitely a struggle to kind of make that change. I used to be a CFO and kind of climbed up the corporate ranks in finance, and, telling people that you were going to leave that thing to go follow a dream was like, there's no way. Be careful. We want you to succeed. We don't want you to fail and like fall on your face. So it took a long time, many years, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of waking up early before a pretty demanding career. And then really feeling like I could believe in myself. Because that's what I think got me to go the other way. It was like, I want to live a life by design. I want to do it my way. I'm worthy of it. So we'll see.
Yes, and
the rest is history.
The rest is history, exactly. And endlessly elated is proof that you can make it work as long as you have a little belief. Now, Lala, I think that we've all talked about being in different careers. Kathleen nailed it. She was working something that felt like the quintessential stable job. Why would you leave that? And Lala, that was your situation. You were working in insurance. You were pursuing college. I mean, you had a lot of different things that were shaping up to be a pretty great life. What were you thinking, right? This is what the friends say. What were you thinking, leaving that all up for a life pursuing Instagram and media? And now you're, a huge actress. So tell us about that.
What's so funny? You said suiting up for a pretty great life. That's what they paint it out to be.
Yes.
They don't tell you that just because you go to college, you may not necessarily get a great paying job. They don't tell you that just because you work a steady job that your benefits will be crap.
Yes.
So yes, I was in insurance, and it was just one of those things where I was so bored on a job and I wasn't making money. I remember I was making $10.24 every 2 weeks because that's my birthday. And pretty much once I made that check amount in one booking from somebody wanting me to come out and host an event, I was like, what am I doing here?
The math didn't make sense.
It just didn't add up, so I say that to say it wasn't easy, no, but what made me leave from there was once I saw that the money was coming faster from something I was more passionate about, I said, you know what, instead of me spending all these hours building somebody else's dream, I'm gonna go ahead and hop on, and take the risk of building my own dream. I can always come back to this place, but I can't always go back to my dream. So that's what I did.
Yes. Oh, I love it. I love it. And boy, do I relate. I quit my job live online in front of 10,000 people 6 years ago. And I was working that corporate job as well. So, it's a big deal. And I understand it. My personality is too big for a cube. And I know my coworkers were happy because I was annoying. So I can totally, completely relate. And I'm also really excited to relate to all of you and be in a place of success as well. Now, Lauren, I want to hear about your beginning. And I'm particularly inspired because I'm actually in the middle of chatting with Team Dear Media about bringing the Nicole Walters podcast over to your team. So all that said, tell me, how did you get started? What made
First of all, that's so funny that you say that, because I was going to tell you offline, you need a podcast. You need a podcast. And we would love it if you were on the Dear Media team. So that's so exciting. We can talk offline too about this. I started, I was like checking the box that society tells you to, going to college. And I think college for me was a complete waste of time. If I could start over, I would have started creating way earlier. I was attending San Diego State University and I was bartending. And I was working until, 1 a.m, teaching Pure Barre and Pilates during the day and going to school full time. And I was doing all the things I was supposed to be doing. And I was completely unfulfilled, bored. And it wasn't doing it for me. And so looking back, I just realized that I was not fulfilled, that I have always been an entrepreneur. And that thing that I was looking for was the entrepreneurial sort of like card that I could insert. And I think with Skinny Confidential, I went and tried to join a sorority, and I was so broke as a bartender. And I remember joining the sorority and they said, okay, it's $800. And I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I can't afford $800.
That's a mortgage in some places.
It's a lot of money. I didn't have any money. I was working nights. And so I said, okay, how can I create this online and do it for free? And how can I create a community? And this was in 2010.
Yeah.
I always say, like, just very much what all these women have said. It's like, get a job that's a service industry job, and then work on your side hustle. I feel like so often we're told, go work for all these different people 9 to 5 and see what you like. I think that drains your energy. If you can take that energy and apply it towards your own side hustle while you're working in the service industry, you're learning how to finesse, you're learning how to sell, you're learning how to be around different energies, personalities, and multitask. So you're learning all these really amazing EQ skills, but it's not draining your energy away from your side hustle. So I'm a big supporter in people working at night as a bartender, waitress, whatever, and then using the day to really squeeze it out and work on your passion.
Oh, so good. And I know that there is someone sitting on the other side of this who's either in that cube right now or starting that first business or waiting tables and listening to this in their AirPods and saying to themselves, this is so inspiring. And it's nice to know that everyone starts somewhere. So we've dug into the starting point, right? I want to talk about that transition period. That first year or two when you are building your business that everyone wants. I mean, online, we have to hear about, oh, it's the hustle, it's the grind, but we also hear like, but it's worth it because look at my win and look at this win and look at that win. So let's keep it real, ladies. What's it really like? Is everyone on your side? Did you have a ton of support? And was it just money after money, Kelly? You'll kick us off.
You know what? It's funny because all of us have so much in common now that I heard everybody speak a little bit. Same thing. I really believe in everybody should do the retail or food and beverage at one point in their life because you learn so much from it. I was actually doing insurance. I did insurance as well. That's how I first started. I did insurance and I bartended and I hustled on the weekends and I did food and beverage. But anyways, and I actually did a movie last year that came out called Echo Boomers, but it's all about our society, about how it makes you go to school, get a big student loan, and then afterwards you can't find a job. So anyways, back to it. My starting off was extremely hard. My first business, like you said, when I was 24 years old, I bought a restaurant in Sunset, and I ended up building a nightclub on top of it afterwards. But it was 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, no break.
So it wasn't just like laptops on your knees at the beach and tons of money coming in and just trips in Lamborghinis? Kelly,
I really wish that was in my dream. But also after that restaurant, I learned that I had to basically create something online or something that's, I didn't need to physically be there because it was really hard. It was never about if people steal from you. It's always about how much they steal from you because the restaurant business is a lot of cash. So it was really, really hard to manage. And I was by myself. 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think my first day off was in 3 months. But also there's month that you do great. And there's also a month that something happened that's completely out of your control. I remember one year, West Hollywood decided to redo their sidewalks for a 3-month long, and there was no entrance to my restaurants. But you have to be able to ride that wave. And there's for sure on days that I wake up and I'm extremely stressed and just like, okay, I have enough money to either pay my employees tomorrow or pay the rent. Which one do I do? Obviously, I always pay my employees and work it out with the landlord, but it was extremely, extremely hard. But it's also great because you learn so much from these challenges and hardships. So yeah, I'll be lying if I tell you it was easy in the beginning.
No, and you know what's so great about that? I think that this is more of what needs to be said, because a lot of us get into it when we have these moments when we first started. I know when I first started, I just adopted 3 sisters. So here I am balancing motherhood as well as launching my business, building employees and trying to cross the, 7-figure threshold. And all I could think to myself was, everyone makes this look so easy, and am I doing something wrong, and it's really, a lot of people think that talking about this actually keeps people from being inspired, but a little bit of dose of truth is really it's a little bit of fire, you know, because people are able to say, look, this is what everyone goes through. So I want to know, you know, Kathleen, was it like that for you? Was your first 1 year out, 2 year out just a breeze, or did you have some bumps as well?
If anyone tells you it's a breeze, they are lying. There's no way that's possible. I say all the time, entrepreneurship is the loneliest road I have ever been on. I didn't ever think that I would say that I missed the teams and the collaborations and all that stuff, but I miss that about corporate America so much. Like the first year, I felt like I was talking to myself, having meetings by myself, being extremely stressed out, not being able, there was things you just don't know what you don't know. You're taking this journey by yourself. Most of my friends are and still are in the realm of corporate America. So I didn't have a lot of outlets to say, hey girl, like, can you tell me if that happened to you? And I was, you know, I don't have any investors. So I was just burning money of my own savings. And that is, yeah, I come from finance. So that was scary. I'm like, every dollar, I'm like, why? So yes, I think it is one of the most bravest things that someone can do to like follow their dreams and do what they think is their life's work. But I think it is so scary. It is not what Instagram tells you it is. It is not the beach with the laptop. I don't know that that's ever happened to me since I've opened my company. And,
so true. Oh my gosh. Preach, ladies. So true. And can we talk about how incredible organizations like WrapWomen are? Because when we started, there wasn't a B conference, right? There wasn't a place for us to go to find people who looked like us, who'd hit our marks, who'd leverage things like social media. I mean, none of us when we were growing up could say, oh, when I grow up, I want to be like an influencer, social media, internet streaming, TV star, because it didn't exist, right? So, I mean, talk about forging your own path and crushing it as well. So I want to actually jump to something that I think really applies to you, Lala, and I want to hear more about it. Forging your own path, right? So there are so many people on social right now with viral videos. I've got 50 million views on my videos. Like, you know, there's tons of people and people say it's crowded. Like, how can I differentiate myself? Now you've got 3.4 million followers after I last checked. It might be 5 million now. I don't know. You're a big deal. So I want to know, how do you stand out? How do you differentiate yourself and you know, take up your space?
Well, here's the thing. One thing that I always tell everybody when it comes to this whole social media space, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, it's going to seem crowded once you get into it. Just like whenever you buy a new car, you start seeing that same car on the road everywhere. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, the way that I feel relevant is by being true to myself. You know, there's a million comedians on social media. There's millions of influencers, but there's only one me.
Yes.
So nobody else can be me. It doesn't matter whether we do the same content or not. Nobody will be able to present it like me. Nobody is going to be able to be Lala Milan. And that's what I pride myself on the most. Whenever I'm giving content, I'm always being true to myself. I'm never pretending to be something that I'm not. And I never will for the sake of, you know, likes or views. So I feel like that's what's kept me staying afloat. You know, when comedy wasn't, or, you know, skits wasn't as exciting for anymore, I stopped doing it because I felt like people would see the lack of passion in it. So now I keep it real with them. I'm telling them about things that I'm experiencing now. I've been on there for a while. So now I'm a grown woman. I'm 31 years old. It's not fun and, you know, all skits and jokes anymore. Now, you know, I have businesses. I have, you know, the family dynamic. I have a lot of other different things that a lot of people my age can relate to now, and they grow with my content and my transition. So I feel like, again, just staying true to yourself while being on this journey, no matter what path you take socially, they're going to be in love with that because they support you as an individual.
Oh, so good. I think a lot of people, when they get on social media, especially younger generations, feel like they have to be cookie cutter. You got to do what everyone else is doing because that's how you're going to get ahead. And I know that my brand is about being a functional hot mess. Sure, I have a multi-million-dollar business. I also picked up my shirt off the bathroom floor yesterday, checked to see if I was wearing deodorant, and I may or may not have a bra on. this is real life. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And, you know, this is real life. And I'm pretty sure we're all wearing sweats. So it's like, these are the things that we need to be honest about exactly in this day and age. And showing that on social is exactly what people are looking for. You know, they want to see that we're being real. And honestly, that is what makes you stand out. Lala, you nailed it. So Lauren, I want to hear from you, kind of a spin on the same question, because so many people look at you and they'll say, oh, she's pretty and she's gorgeous and she's got it. You know, she's been doing this forever. She's a pro. She's built all these things. But one thing you're known for is the way you keep it real. I mean, you absolutely call it like you see it. I want to know, being different in that way, being the pretty face with the real mouth on you, right? I want to know, how do you put it out there so confidently? Because I know that inside you still have insecurities like all of us. How are you doing it?
That is such a two-pronged question, because 4 years into blogging, I had to get massive jaw surgery where they broke my entire face. It was a 16-hour surgery, and they said I was going to be swollen for a month, and I was swollen to here for 3 years. And I had a full-blown identity crisis, and to go through that on social media was really humbling and just made me realize that for me to follow someone for a long time, you have to have more than leading with stuff and a face. It's boring. It's not enough. It doesn't keep people engaged, and who cares? So that to me was a learning experience. And I was like, going back to what I wanted to lead with, and something I like to lead with is I've been an oversharer since I was born. So my husband and I launched a podcast 5 years ago. And I just realized, like, I don't just looking at what someone's eating and wearing and what their nail polish color is on Instagram wasn't enough. The audience wanted something more intimate that was in their ear. And so when we launched the podcast, it was just so incredible, because it's nothing to do with what you look like. It's all about, do you have the chops? Are you going to open up? I hate the word authentic. I need to look up another word for that, because I want to blow my brains out every single time I say that word. But like, can you lay it all on the table? And we really did lay it on the table. And I think it did really create and foster a really incredible community. Yes. Along with that, I felt like really good about it, because it's the one medium out of every single medium, out of YouTube, television, Instagram story, blogging, that doesn't take the audience's time. Yes. Podcasting, you're respecting someone's time. So if someone can be cooking or cleaning or working or running and be listening and be having education, entertainment, inspiration while they're getting something else done, for me, it feels really good as a creator to know that the audience is doing something for their self while they're consuming my content. So for me, the podcast space is just like, it's my end all be all. It's my mothership. It's very, very important to me. And I love that it has nothing to do. You can show up looking so haggard, like soft. Haggard. You know, like it's incredible.
I hear you. And that's the realness that I'm talking about, you know, and I think that's really inspiring, because people will, especially as women, try to limit, you know, the way that we show up to our looks or our face or who we know or who we're next to. And I'm so glad you hit on that, Lauren, because you're saying, look, like, it's about the chops. The reason why we got where we got is because we did the work. Now, I want to talk about that part, because a lot of people that are listening, you know, a lot of the women that are here are either already side hustlers or they're in their career trying to get to the next place. And so because of that, they may be in a place where they're saying to themselves, how do I get to the next level? So obviously you heard how I quit my job, but within that, I've also launched other things. I have headwear products, and I have a podcast, and obviously I have a TV show. So I'm going to pose this to all of you, because each of you started one place, but then took on other projects that are wildly different than where you are when you started, right? So you had something that worked. You said, let me go over there and do something totally different. So Kelly, from a restaurant to top shows on Netflix, what are you thinking?
I don't even know how I got here. No idea. Yeah, you know, I think just where life takes me. And I feel like also with a lot of different businesses, and you know, obviously every business has a lot of different knowledge, but the underlining of every business, the structure of it is all the same in a sense. There's the marketing aspect, there's the, you know, the demand, the production, the whatever it is. So I definitely have my hands in a lot of different ventures, and I've learned so much from every single one of them that led me to the next one, right? So so this is a new chapter for me as well, and just see where it goes.
I love it. And think about that, guys. You know, if you're listening, understand that everyone is talking about how everything is tied together. So even if you are in a place right now where you're like, I hate my job, every single day I want to leave, if they say one more thing, I'm typing these emails with an attitude, per to, hither, and, right? We are in a mood. But there are lessons that we're learning in the moment, right? And obviously the pursuit of what you're chasing is worthy. So Kathleen, I want to talk about that with you, you know, branching into something that I don't know how you even explain this to, you know, as a fellow immigrant child to your parents. My parents were like, .com, what is .com? And I don't understand. You have website. What is website? You know, so I want to know, right? Same. So how did you, you know, branch out and say, I'm doing something unorthodox, but no, like, I want to hear more about the transition within self, you know, that inner, I'm ready for the next level. I'm going to do something new.
Yeah, I think you can have all the, I think a lot of people, especially like strategic partners and business partners, will give you all the strategies, right? Like, what are your financial objectives and what are your sales strategies and your marketing? And it is not to say that none of that, I'm a student of life, right? So
yeah, that's on paper,
learn that and
understand. That's on paper.
Exactly. But what we don't talk about is almost listening to like that moral compass, that person inside of you that's saying like, this is it. And listening to all you ladies, like we all have felt the same exact way. It's like, I was sitting, I'm not for the cube either. I was sitting in an office. I was sitting in a cubicle. I'm like, what am I doing with my life when all I'm thinking about is interior design and recipes and like designing home products? Like, there was beauty for me in the home space. It's what I loved since I was 7 years old. You know, what's also interesting is I always tell people, I get questioned a lot about like, how do you find your life's purpose? And I always tell people, go back to the child before society got a hold of you and started giving you examples of doctors and lawyers and teachers and police officers or whatever else. It's like, what were you doing? And at 7 or 8 years old, which is how I told my parents, like, remember when I used to redesign my bedroom, I don't know, every 6 months? And remember when I used to cry because you wouldn't let me to cook with you? And, you know, there was beauty for me in the home space. So I think it's so important to really listen to your moral compass, not just the strategies, like the things on paper, essentially, to get you not only to the next level, to get you to make the leap. And it's faith, right? At the end of the day, you gotta believe in yourself. It's what Lala said. Like, you have to be you and not take no for an answer.
Oh, so good. And I know you just freed someone right now. Someone right now is like, oh, so it's not going to get any different. This thing is going to keep clawing at me until I just jump. So I need to jump. Now, Lala, you were doing what was working, but now you've branched into so many new areas. You've got your hands in a lot of different pots business-wise. So I want to know, how are you deciding the next place you're going to stand? Because, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years I heard that you'd opened up, you know, a contact lens line. Like, I mean, you literally could do anything at this point. You know what I mean? So how are you deciding the next place you're going and feeling confident enough to take that jump?
Well, I'm going to just say, based off of something that Kelly mentioned, she said that everything that she was doing was leading into the next thing. That's pretty much the same thing for me, right? So with my platform, when I touch on different topics, I see what gets high engagement. Two things for me that got extremely high engagement was when I would make, you know, jokes about dealing with female issues, i.e. when you eat asparagus and you get an odor and you're like, oh my God, what's going on? You know, so I decided to touch into feminine care because I noticed that feminine wellness, because I noticed that it's a huge taboo for women to talk about issues that we have going on. And if you do, it's frowned upon. It's like, ew, girl, you got that vagina cream. And it's like, girl, I'm just trying to maintain my pH balance. Like,
it's science.
You know? So I noticed that as a comedian, I was able to talk about it freely without people feeling the need to judge me and saying, her coochie stinks. Excuse me, but that's just what it would be, you know? So I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and normalize this conversation while also being able to talk about it creating, you know, a brand with that. That's how I created the women's wellness line. And then with Fit Girl Bod, I created that simply because I am a slim woman, and we always hear about women who want to, well, people who want to lose weight. But anytime somebody says I want to gain weight, it's like, for what? I wish I had your body. I wish that, girl, all you got to do is eat. And it's like, you know what? Let me go ahead and normalize this conversation as well, because too many people are frowning upon it when actually there's a whole world of people who actually want to gain, you know. So I created that safe space separate from my actual page because I noticed it was getting a lot of engagement, but I was so passionate about it. I was like, you know, let me keep my page, my brand separate from my personal, and that's what caused me to create a whole different entity for it. So long story short, okay, I pretty much, the things that I became passionate about, and I noticed there wasn't a lack of conversation about it, I wanted to go ahead and started making more space for conversations to be had.
Brilliant. I just love it. I love hearing all the stories because a lot of times people think that it really is just any idea that strikes me, I definitely want to pursue it. But then you end up with a lot of half-baked ideas and nothing that you've actually pursued all the way. But what we're hearing is that everything is interconnected. Everything has a place. And I think one thing you brought out, Lala, that I'd love to hear more from Lauren about is you talked about how you looked at engagement, you looked at the numbers, you were numerically driven, right? That you were saying, look, what are people saying out there that makes sense? And how do I build on that? And Lauren, you are such a perfect person to expand on this because you are very analytically driven. And I think a lot of times people may think, oh yeah, no, it's just fun. It's easy. It's a podcast. You just hop on and you talk and no big deal. But no, everything you've done has been very intentional. So can you speak to that a little bit more? How you are applying intentionality in each of your moves and how you're letting your community drive your business?
I am not analytical at all. Actually,
I don't mean like in terms of data and stats.
Yes,
I mean
the
the intentionality.
I should be better. Maybe everyone on here can give me tips about how to look at numbers more. I'm not, but if you're saying like community analytics, more like
intentionality. Yes.
Yes, definitely not numbers. I don't want anyone to think that I am a numbers person because I would be lying. But definitely what you're saying about, you know, really tapping into community.
Yes.
I am someone that, you know, I've had the Skinny Confidential for 12 years. I just launched a product 3 weeks ago. And how I launched that product was engaging with my audience, just like Lala was talking about, whether it's in DMs. I responded to every single email for the first 7 years. I responded to every single DM for the first 8 years. I remember sitting, you know, I would have 30 minutes on my calendar in the morning and 30 minutes in my calendar at night to do nothing but respond. I would respond to everyone. I would talk with them. So when I launched product, it was very clear to me what the audience wanted. It was very community driven. I would say that my husband, who I host the podcast with, is more analytical. He's looking at numbers and seeing people want more beauty and wellness. People want more entrepreneurship. So he's a little bit more of that side. I'm definitely someone who loves to talk and engage with the people who have supported my platform, whether that's posting their business on my Instagram story or connecting with them pre-COVID in person, having those in-person events, posting their stuff on the blog, bringing them on. I've always been very, very, very hands-on as a creator with the community. And I think that if you're just starting out, the first step is to refine your intention. Why are you doing this? So many people come and will email me and say, I want to start a blog. How do I make money? That is like, I would take that question and throw it in the trash. And I'm just being really honest. It's seriously the worst way to go into a business. I went into this business, and this is why you should have a service industry job or something, like Kelly said, at a boutique or something on the side. I went into this to provide value with tangible takeaways that the audience could apply to their own life. So they find something here, they can go take it how they want it and use it in their own life. It wasn't to make money right away. It wasn't to show off a certain lifestyle. It was to provide them with value. And I knew in building a brand that it would take a long time to even monetize. So I put that out of my head. I didn't even think about it. Monetization was like, if I'm baking a cake, the monetization was was the baking soda. That's how little it meant to me. And I didn't make a dime for 3 years. And I blogged every single day, 7 days a week, and didn't make a dime. And that's why I always say it's so important to refine your intention. Because if your intention is to make money in this atmosphere, I would go do something else. This isn't the job for me, at least, it has not been this get rich quick. How do I monetize? And the people that I have noticed that monetize right off the bat typically have an astronaut syndrome, where they go to the moon and they go viral, and then they have to come back down to earth.
Yeah.
And it's a real bitch to come back down to earth when you've been to the moon. A lot of astronauts actually, I was reading about this, experience depression and anxiety, because when you've gone to the moon, what's left? I'm all about the slow build, being strategic and thoughtful and mindful, while mixing that engagement with the audience. So if you're thinking about a career, and if you want to be an entrepreneur, really get real on what your intention is.
I love this. And it cracks me up as a corporate consultant who's done this, for so many years. You may not think you're analytical, but you are analyzing the moves of your people. You're applying that to figure out what you need to replicate. You're looking at the intentionality and the data that they're giving you. You're making decisions based on that. You're leaning into the numbers and getting a return. I mean, you're doing all of the things. You're just doing it in your style that's getting you the best payout. And
I'll take it, Nicole. No one's ever described me as that. I will take it.
Oh, it's the truth.
Everyone.
Truth. I mean, so don't let anyone tell you, if they're like, Lauren doesn't do the numbers, just call me in. I'll be like, listen, actually, you can't do this without Lauren. Okay. She's the business right here. No, I love it. So one of the things I think is so great that Lauren just continuously leans into, but frankly, all of you guys do, is we've talked about community, right? We're only as good as the people who are willing to consume the products we put out, consume the content that we're trying to serve them with. So let's talk a little bit about community building and our role as a leader in all of that. So Kelly, I want to talk to you, but from a different spin, right? So right now, we know that the Asian American community is facing an onslaught of unnecessary, inappropriate, and hate-filled attacks due to the recent socio-political climate. And, while we all categorically, unequivocally condemn that behavior, we also are excited to see the rise of, prominent Asian faces that have been doing the work all the time, but are finally getting some of the flowers and accolade that's been long overdue. So knowing this and knowing that you are one of those leaders, and you are doing this within a community that's watching, how does that feel for you? And what responsibility do you think you have as a leader?
Well, first of all, it's been extremely heartbreaking of all the Asian hate crime that's been going on, especially just new cases that comes out every single day. So it's been really hard. And, mass media picks up on some, but not all of them. And like you mentioned, it's been really great that we are having more Asian representations in mass media, and because we're extremely underrepresented.
Yes.
And it's very important for us to have diverse and representation to create an equal working environment, and also show our younger generation that anything is possible regarding a race. Because for me, growing up, I didn't have, growing up in the U.S. as an immigrant, I really didn't have somebody to look up to in a sense, where the magazines, the television, the movies I was watching, there weren't faces that looked like me. So I was, at that time, secretly wished I looked different. So now that, we hopefully can have, allow the younger generation to have role models that comes from similar backgrounds that they can relate to, it's so important. And it's not just in front of camera, but as well as behind the camera as well. For me as I think we all have a responsibility to help the younger generation and hopefully leave the planet a little bit better than we found it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you're doing that in such a marvelous way. One of the great things about the work that you do, Kelly, is that it naturally leaves a legacy, right? So at any point in time, 10 years from now, Bling Empire is huge now, but it becomes a cult classic later. It's the type of thing that people just watch over and over and over again. And hopefully it's still airing, season 23, right? So we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
That's right.
And, we really have to thank a lot of the previous projects, Crazy Rich Asians, Fresh Off the Boat, for doing so well to pave the way for us. And hopefully, with Bling Empire, we can pave the way for more Asian, shows.
Yes. And also Asian integration in an honest and authentic way into every piece of media, not just Asian specific stories highlighting the immigrant experience.
Absolutely. Diverse cast, we need that in front of the camera and back of camera.
Yes. And I love it because you are on both sides, writing, acting, doing all those great things. And we're just so appreciative of that. Now, Kathleen, same thing, you run a community-driven product. So I want to know more about you from a leadership role because, with the work that you do and the products that you offer, they're always consumer directed. So tell us a little bit about what that feels like from a leadership standpoint. Because I imagine with your team, you're constantly saying, well, what do the people want? What do the people want? What do they ask for? So talk to us about how that works for you.
I go straight to the people. We don't ask the team.
Yes.
Yeah, because of that, because I think, first of all, Kelly said it perfectly. It's like, what I find is my responsibility is to continue to pave the way, right? It's to representation matters. We all know that. It's now being able to share my story, where I come from, my beginnings, all the things that make me me, and say, if you're like me, you can do it too. And that leads by example and not necessarily by saying these things, right? It's just you see me and I embody who I am. But from a standpoint of my company as a whole, my entire company is driven on community. So we call them co-creators. They co-create and co-design home products with us. They're involved in what we launch, to how it's designed, to the materials we use. And it's really important because I think having them have a seat at the table makes them sort of be completely interested and consumed with the brand, right? So I think it's so important. Community is a very important tool, I think, in any business.
I love it. And I mean, we're talking about community, but you're also talking about relationship building, right? So they feel more connected in buying because they're invested in the creation. So beautiful lesson, I think, for anyone who's listening, who's saying, look, I create a physical product, right? Or I offer something specific, in terms of my service, and letting it being community driven is a great way to protect your sales, but also to make sure that you're getting people who love and talk about your product. So speaking of community, Lala, I mean, being someone who started off as an influencer with a huge social media footprint, people are getting canceled left and right. People go high and lows, and if you are solely invested in what your numbers say, the clicks and the vanity metrics, that can be a really tough place to be. But we also can't ignore them because, like you said, that engagement drives our business in so many different ways. So how do you balance that as a leader? You have responsibility to say the things that are true to you, but also give the people what they want to some extent, right? So where does that sit with you?
It drives me crazy, if I'm being honest.
Tell the truth.
Yeah, it drives me crazy because as a comedian, respectfully, I feel like we used to be at one point in time able to make a joke about everything. Today, people are so sensitive about everything. Earlier, I saw people arguing about whether or not the proper term of calling a woman a female is okay. And I was like, wait, and I read it and educated myself, and I was like, dang, I didn't know it was this deep. And at one point in time, it wasn't,
Right.
So I say that to say it's one of those things to where that's why it wasn't as fun for me anymore, creating content, because when I have to limit myself to things that I'm interested in, it's not exciting. Limitations was for me when I was working a traditional job. That's why I didn't like it there. I had to do what was okay for my boss instead of doing what I wanted to do. So, it is a lot to be able to create and have such a platform and be very aware of, how people feel about certain things that you say. So in that reason, honestly, I just shut the hell up. I don't say anything that's personal to my beliefs online because quite frankly, it's none of their business what I think anyways. You know what I'm saying? And I solely devote that platform to just entertainment. If it's something safe to touch on, I will. If it's not, I probably still will. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things to where I'm going to do what makes me happy. And if I do get canceled again, I've probably been canceled about 4.5 times, not completely because obviously I'm still there, but you get canceled over the craziest things. I've been canceled and didn't even know until I went and looked up my name on Twitter, and they're like, why would she even call herself a comedian? She's not funny. And I'm like, dang, what did I do that week? You know,
I was just showing up. I didn't even realize I posted.
I didn't even know. So I say that to say I am very cautious in what I post. And honestly, if I feel like it's going to ruffle some feathers, I just stay away from it and save it for my friends and, private messages and stuff. But it's annoying. I'm going to say that again.
Know. I love hearing, though, that there is a balance of boundaries for you. So I think that's very relevant, is that a lot of us wonder how much can we share? How much is too much? What's okay? What isn't okay? And, you're making it clear that, look, like even someone with a big platform sometimes says, yeah, I'm keeping that to myself and that's okay. And I'm allowed to,
I don't joke about babies. I don't joke about death. And of now domestic violence. I used to, at first I thought it was funny when you would reverse the roles, because traditionally thinking we would think, but I thought it was empowering a woman, but that's not okay either, and it's one of those things to where it's like, it's a learning experience in so many things when you're not even expecting to be taught a lesson. So, because I graduated college years ago and I don't want any more lessons, I just steer clear.
I love it. Well, I know that no matter what, we're all learning something today. I'm picking up a lesson or two. So, we're talking about community, and we're talking here at the B conference, all about what it looks like to dive into our community, to elevate and to be a leader within that community. So Lauren, what's interesting about you is that you not only created your own community where you were using your voice to inspire them, to push them, to teach them, to encourage them, but then you decided to create a platform with Dear Media where you're now elevating other voices. So tell us about your commitment as a leader there. How does that feel, knowing that you are, now really building up the next generation of voices and kind of your responsibility within all that?
Yeah, I think that for me, there's only so many pictures I can post or podcasts I can put out where I'm bored with myself.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in uplifting other people. I think that for me, that's the next, phase of my life. And my husband is as well with Dear Media. I think, I look up to someone like Oprah, who on her show uplifted Dr. Phil, uplifted Dr. Oz. She was always uplifting other people. I think that there's power in numbers. I'm not afraid at all to be on a podcast with an expert. I am not an expert. I am a practitioner. I am someone that tries product and gives my experience as the everyday girl. I am not trying to be, a doctor, a facialist, an esthetician, all these things we have on. So I'm all about bringing the experts on. I'm all about, uplifting other voices. And I think for me, like I said, that's the next phase. So I couldn't be more excited about that with Dear Media. It's a female-focused podcast network. I think that we just signed 100 shows. I do not work on Dear Media every single day. Michael does. But it's just so much fun to be a part of and watch the momentum that they're doing. I think they're really changing the podcast space. For a while, a lot of podcast networks were selling off a CPM. So they were just selling an ad spot on a podcast. And what I think Michael's done for the space is he's come in and said, no, an influencer celebrity is actually a 360 approach. So it's not just selling one ad. Let's think of it more as a marriage as opposed to a one-night stand. How can this be the most impactful for the creator, the brand, and the audience? And so what he does is, like, say a Thrive Market comes and does a buy across all the channels. He'll partner a Thrive Market with someone like you, Nicole, and you'll have 6-month partnership with them where you're doing ads on the podcast, but you're also integrating it on Instagram stories, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So it's a part of the story as opposed to, let me just pay you for this ad. What's the ROI buy? So I think it's really cool to be disrupting an industry, and really moving the category forward. We've had so many old white guys in suits, and I can say this because I was part of another podcast network that we won't speak of the name. And they just didn't understand the culture of influencers, comedians, entrepreneurs, celebrities that it is today. It's different than it was. They're doing it the old way. So to be on the pulse and to be doing it the new way is really exciting.
I love it. And not just the new way, but redefining how it'll be done going forward. Because hopefully, because it doesn't just make sense for the influencer and the creator, it makes sense for the brand. Coming from a corporate, standpoint, you want to be enmeshed thoroughly in an honest experience in lots of different places. You want more touch points, not just a single ad. So it's great because I think that all of us are showing, we're all doing kind of traditional work, right? There have been actors since the beginning of time. There have been TV shows for forever. There's been interior design and there have been voices and radio and things of that sort. But what we're doing is the Steve Jobs of it all, right? We're taking a phone, but we're taking the buttons off of it. We're making it better by reinventing it, putting our, awesome womanly sauce all over it, and then relaunching it into the world and saying, hey, this is bigger and it's better. So that said, before we wrap up, I do want to make sure we have the opportunity to leave everyone with a single piece of advice. And I know selfishly, this is something that I always like to hear because I feel like I'm always reinventing myself, right? I'm always launching something new. I just got this TV show, we're going to season 2. Like, I really want to know, what do you wish you had known before you started your career? So before you jumped in, before you even said, I'm going to do this, now that you're on the other side, what is the one thing you wish someone had honestly told you? And I'm going to start with Kelly. What's the one thing you wish you'd known?
I think for me is never give up and know that every mistake or failure is an opportunity in disguise.
Oh, so good. Everything's a learning experience. Yes.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yes. And Kathleen, what's the one thing you wish you'd known?
Oh, that's so hard. There's so many things. But if I think, I would say probably that your voice matters. Pave the way that you want to pave it. Do it on your own terms. At the end of the day, failure isn't an option if you keep trying. So to me, if I would have known that younger self in me says, hey, when you think something, when you think you can make a difference, do it, speak up about it, say it, would have been really, really important. I think if you have a seat at the table, but you're not using your voice to take up space at that table, then we're not honoring the table, right? So I think having that voice would have probably been good advice.
So good. Pass the collection plate. Oh my gosh. It sounds like Lupita Nyong'o, where she said in her Oscar acceptance speech, your dreams are valid. I heard the term, they resonated with me at the time, but boy, after entrepreneurship, do they mean so much more when you realize like valid doesn't mean they'll happen. Valid doesn't mean it'll be easy, but they're worthy and they matter, So
life by design.
Life by design. So good. Lala, what's the one thing you wish someone had told you, or the message that keeps repeating itself?
Something that I wish someone would have told me and that people saw more often online is you are going to get so many no's before you get your one yes. But understand that when you do get that yes is going to travel so much further than the no. So,
that's so good.
At the end of the day, stay consistent no matter what, because your consistency is what's going to get you through that door, not you quitting once you got those no's.
Oh, that's so good. It reminds me of, I have clients who will pitch and pitch and pitch themselves, right? After building the amazing product, and they'll get all these no's and they'll just kind of mourn each no as if they lost something. And it's like, all you needed was one yes. We're not looking for, all of these people couldn't have said yes. You needed no's, right? You're only going to go to one college. So it's okay that you got the rejection. And I love the way that you put it. That is so powerful. And Lauren, wrap us out with one big piece of info that you wish you had known before you even started.
I would tell anyone who's listening to sit down and make a list of the top 20 things you love to do. They could be as stupid as I like sea monkeys, whatever it is, like, so just what you love. Forget about society, forget about your friends, your dad, your sister, your whatever, and write down that list. And then I would solely focus on the top 3. And just to give you an example of one of mine that was my top one, it was scrapbooking. When I was little, Kathleen mentioned this earlier, do what you liked when you were little. I loved scrapbooking. And now what I'm doing for a living is online scrapbooking. So just because it sounds like, I don't know, how can I make a living scrapbooking? you take what you love and you apply it to new age, you mix it together, and you can have the career and the life experience of your dreams. You're in charge of your future. You can create it.
Oh, I love that.
Love, love, love.
Oh, I love it because it's emphasizing that the dream is already in you, right? Like it's already within you. You have what you need. Just tap into it and lean forward. Oh, ladies, this was so good. I know that everyone listening right now is just screaming and just dying and taking notes and frantically looking you up. So let's make it easy for them. Let's do a quick roundtable and let us know where people can find out more about you, what you've got coming on next, and how they can keep up. So Kelly, kick us off.
You can find me on social media at Kelly Mealy, and season 2 of Bling Empire is coming up. So fingers crossed. I'm so excited to share everything with you guys.
Yes, I love it. And speak it into existence. Season 3, 4, 5, 6, and counting. Okay. Love it. Kathleen, where can we find more? Where can we buy stuff? I mean, come on, girl, tell us.
Well, if you're asking, no, you can find it at www.endlesslyelated.com. Same social media handles. And then I'm Kathleen Pagan on social media. And we are launching a vase that's coming out soon. So that'll be our next product. So it's super exciting. You know, just ready to take on 2021.
So excited. I'm like, we're all in our houses more. Let's make them beautiful, right?
Yes,
I love
that'll make my soul happy.
Yes, I love it. And Lala, you always have your hands in a billion different products, you know? So I also want to know, where can we see more of you in addition to where we can buy and engage with those products?
Thank you. Well, my main account handle is at Lala Milan. And then if you are interested at all in a safe space for wanting to gain weight or just get your ultimate fit girl bod, the ideal body of your choice, then you can follow that page as well at Fit Girl Bod. And I'm so excited because we are releasing our resistance bands and protein powder for those who are acne prone, such as myself, but also being able to pack on the calories.
I love it. I love it. Oh, it's just serving. And Lauren, what else do you have? I mean, what else are you fitting on your plate? We want to know what else you have going on and where can we learn more?
We just launched this. It's an ice roller. It's all about depuffing because of my jaw surgery. This was the best beauty tip. This will roll away all puff and fluid. It stays cold forever. And we just launched an oil with it that's all about anti-inflammatory. I noticed there was nothing on the market that was dealing with puff. We're all using creams and moisturizers and eye creams and all these things in makeup, but I was dealing with swelling. So that is the product. We're going to be launching a lot of different stuff. It's shopskinnyconfidential.com. And then my book comes out June 15th. It's called Get the Fuck Out of the Sun. It's all the skin tips and tricks from 100 of the top tier influencers, celebrities, doctors. It's on Amazon, Target, and Barnes & Noble. And it's all about skin. So thank you so much for having me. That was so much fun.
Yes, you are incredible. Ladies, you are amazing. Now, if you guys want to learn more about me, Nicole Walters, if you want to work with the business and build your own, head over to inheritlearning.com. If you just want to keep up with me and watch the show, head over to NicoleWalters.com, and it's Nicole Walters all over social media. And if you don't have your day 3 upgrade pass, grab it now because this was good. And I'm going to be leading a workshop on how to be a boss tomorrow as part of the B conference here with Team WrapWomen. Now, everyone, ladies, this was so inspiring. You are all so incredible. And thank you for giving and showing up in the world the way you do.
Thank you so much. So much fun with you, ladies. Thank you.
I would love to invite everyone on here. They were so well spoken on our podcast. If you guys are interested, just DM me on Instagram. It's at Lauren Bostic. We do record in person in LA or Austin. So if you guys are comfortable with that and you want to come on the podcast, we can talk all about your journey and promote whatever you're promoting.
See, the real deal. She's a giver. I love it.
Love it.
All right, you guys.
Thank you.
Cynthia is really one of the most exciting talents to take entertainment by storm in the past several years. For those who don't know her, she started out on stage in the color purple as Celie. And since then, she's taken on a wide range of characters: the unflappable Belle in Widows, the mysterious Darlene in Bad Times at the El Royale. And more recently, she's taken on major figures from history. She's played Harriet Tubman, our icon of freedom, in the movie Harriet. And now she's embodying the Queen of Soul in the limited series Genius Aretha, playing the one and only Aretha Franklin. So she not only acts, she writes songs, and she sings to shake the roof. We are incredibly excited to welcome her to WrapWomen's Be Conference. But before I bring her out, let's take a look at a trailer for Genius Aretha.
Was blind, but now I see.
And please join me in welcoming Cynthia Erivo.
Hi.
Wow. Well, Cynthia, welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much.
We have so many things we're excited to talk to you about. You have done so much incredible work in recent years, and for our audience who doesn't know, you have won a Tony,
yes,
and an Emmy,
yes,
and a Grammy,
yes,
and you have 2 Academy Award nominations from
yes,
Harriet, both for the song that you wrote and performed, and of course for that incredible performance. And now we're heading into Emmy season. I don't think very many people doubt that you will be heavily considered around this unbelievable portrayal, and really deep portrayal of Aretha Franklin.
Thank you.
But at this, but when you accomplish so many things, it sometimes appears to the outside world as like, oh, it was this kind of incredible, unalloyed journey to success after success. And that's never the case.
No. No.
And the people at this conference are people who are building their careers in entertainment and media. Many of them, this is about diversity and inclusion. This is about bringing women into helping them onto their paths. And so many of them I know, and me as well, I really want to know how you did it. Like what was your path? And so, yeah, let's just start, if we can, a little bit there.
I guess my path is an odd one. I was in London and mostly only doing theatre, small theatre, regional theatre, little bits and pieces like that. And it felt like everything that I did would lead to the next thing. And I would have to work very hard. I would fight. I would audition. I would walk the pavements, get on a bike and get from place to place, get lost on the way to auditions, all of those things, lose out on auditions, not get parts. The main thing is just to keep going, and also to keep working and practicing. So it would, for me, every time I would audition, whether I get it or not, it was another way to learn, another way to meet a character that I might not have met on an ordinary basis, another way to learn something about the way I perform, or a skill to pick up when I'm doing playing someone or trying to tell their story. I think that often we let the no's beat us down, and that's okay for a day or so, and then you have to get up and move forward. If we dwell on the things that we don't get, we never really make the room for the things that we could be working towards getting. And I've had to learn that sometimes the hard way, to be honest. Yeah, even as recent as like this week, I lost out on something that I wanted to do, and there's nothing I can do about that except for let it go. I can sit in it for a little bit and then I move on. It was really disappointing, but I had to let it go because there's other things to get on with. Success doesn't stop you from experiencing no's and the word we use, rejection. I never see it as rejection. I sometimes see it as a way to create some space for yourself so you can keep moving forward towards the thing you're supposed to be doing.
That's incredible to hear. You know, it's a really good reminder, particularly when you're an artist, you constantly have to be putting yourself out there, and you really never get to rest on your Academy Award nominations or wins or Grammys, or, I mean, you should. I'll say you should, but it doesn't really work that way.
No, not at all. And I think that sometimes on the outside, it looks like everything happens and it sort of, falls in your lap.
Totally.
No, it really, and that's not how it works. Sometimes when you're lucky, if you've done all the work that you need to, and you've had conversations with the people that are making the things, and it feels right, and it all sort of becomes like a kismet, then yes, it happens. I'm also in a really lovely position where I can start to create my own things and create my own work. And that's a whole different ball game, because now it's not just about creating work. It's about creating something that people want to see.
I do want to get to that, sort of what you want to create. Let's leave that to side. I want to come back to that in a bit.
Sure.
Let's just start from the beginning. Most of us don't know your story. You're from London. We know that. Your parents are from Nigeria.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're basically an immigrant. It's an immigrant story in a way.
I'm first gen Nigerian British. My mother raised me single-handedly. She moved to London when she was, I think, 24, 25.
Why did your family, or why did your mother move?
My mother moved because she wanted more for herself. I think there are parts of Nigeria that have wonderful infrastructure, and there's parts of Nigeria that have terrible infrastructure. She's from a village that really didn't allow her to become all the things that she wanted to. She went to school there, did all the things that she could. She went as far as she possibly could, and then wanted more. She really wanted to be a nurse, and there wasn't the space for her to learn the way she wanted to, and to be in the field that she wanted to be in. So she essentially got her father to, because she has, I want to say, 7 or 8 siblings. And her father was only sending one of those siblings to London. And she said, well, let me go with her. Let me take care of her, but let me also study. I'll go with her if you let me study as well. And he let her go, but only allowed her to study catering. And she didn't want to study catering. She wanted to study.
Why?
It's
just like a tradition, or
traditional, heteronormative, patriarchal
ideas.
Ideas. You have to remember, when she came over, it was 60s, 70s. So for her, those are the things that were expected of her, to cook and clean. And she didn't want that. So when she got here, she did the studies for catering whilst learning the subject she needed in order to go and study nursing at the same time. So she would go in the daytime to school for catering, and at nighttime she would go to school for nursing. So she got her science, her biology, her chemistry, mathematics degrees, and then went and did a nursing degree at King's College. On her own. Totally on her own. And so I guess that sort of set her up for knowing that stopping someone from doing something that they're meant to be doing, it wasn't the right thing to do. So when she had me and she was on her own, she never stopped me from sort of dreaming and being who I wanted to be. I would sing around the house, and there's a baby book that she has. And I think at 18 months, she says, I think she's going to be a singer and an actress. And then when I get
18 months, what could you possibly be doing at 18 months?
It was I would hum when I was eating. So she just took that as like, okay, this child hums all the time. She's always running around in different clothes, and she's humming and singing, and I don't know that was a natural thing for her to do. So she just noticed it and was like, I think she's going to be a singer or actress. And then maybe later on, because I started mimicking her, she would come home in her nurse's outfit, and she would be looking at patients and making sure things would I would mimic her. I would go and get a little white coat and all of those things, and a little white dress and my shoes, and I would use back in London. There's like checking forms where you fill in something that you want to put into the bank. If you've got cash and you want to check it in and put it in.
Right.
You fill out this little form and you give that to the bank. I would use that to pretend to write a prescription.
Oh my gosh.
So I was doing that. So she thought, oh, maybe she's going to be a nurse and an actress, nurse or a singer. The acting and the singing never left as far as she was concerned. That was what I was meant to do. So as time went on, I did everything I could possibly do. She was never pushy, but she was never in the way. So if I wanted to go and do this at Young Actors Company or this after school club that was just about singing and acting, she would let me go and do those things. And when I got to age 15, I did this Young Actors Company with the Young Vic. And at the time, the Young Vic would do young actors' performances of whatever was on in the main house. And what was on in the main house at that time was Romeo and Juliet. It was a Polish circus company doing this production of Romeo and Juliet. And I remember watching it thinking, I cannot believe what I am looking at. It felt like I was watching magic happen in front of me.
Really?
It was because my brain could not compute how they managed to combine the classical language of Shakespeare with movement and acrobatics. And it just was like, I don't understand what's happening. And I'm watching someone tightrope across the stage and to get to Juliet. I'm watching this man, Romeo, tightrope walk across the stage to get to Juliet. And I just was like, my mind is blown. And we did this Young Actors production of Romeo and Juliet, and I played Juliet. And I just remember thinking everything sort of like dropped in. It felt like this is what I was supposed to be doing.
How old are you at this point?
15. I was
15.
Yeah.
15. So you were already tapped by the time you're a teenager as like young, real talent, because you're not going to be doing anything at the Vic, okay? The new Vic, old Vic, little Vic, big Vic, I don't care. That is the big time.
Yeah. But for me, I guess I didn't even see it that way because it was just a short course that we were doing that had let me. It was so strange because I did not intend to get Juliet. I went with a friend to audition because she pulled me in. She said, let's go and do this thing. I think we might have some fun. I want to audition. I think you should come with me and audition as well. So I was like, okay.
This is like a scene from a movie, Cynthia, actually, but go on.
I was like, okay, fine. I don't think anything's going to happen, but we went. And then I get called back the next time because they want me to play Juliet. And I was like, okay.
Your friend must not have been very happy.
My friend did this with me, but she was not playing, and she wasn't like a huge character. But I remember feeling a little bit guilty because I really didn't know that I would be picked to do anything like this. You know? Yeah.
That's quite a role.
Yes.
To begin your career with.
Yes.
And so then you went on to do, you went to the Royal Academy?
I did. I went on to
Dramatic Arts, RADA?
Yes. And that was sort of by default. I went to university first to study music psychology, and everyone asked, what's music psychology? Music psychology is the study of the way in which music affects the mind, and often how a person's social standing can also influence that too.
This is how you can be a nurse and a musician.
This is how you can be a psychologist or a counselor and a musician.
You're still holding on to...
I guess in my brain, I was like, I don't know if it's possible for me to be in entertainment, but I certainly would love to be able to help people using music. So it was like, maybe I'll be a music therapist. Who knows? But because I just didn't think it was possible. But whilst I was doing this course, I was just painfully bored. It's like my brain and my body knew that I was doing the wrong thing. It knew that I was not being stimulated the way I should be. And so I quit because I didn't even need to go to the lectures to give in dissertations. I was passing without even needing to be there, which told me in volumes that I was in the wrong place. So I quit. I go to this youth company at Stratford Theatre Royal, and it's like a short course just for acting and those who want to be in entertainment. And the woman who is the director for the Young Actors Company that I did for the Young Vic is the woman who is taking this youth course at Stratford Theatre Royal. I meet her in the foyer of the theatre, because that's where the course is, and she asks me if I'm training, and I said, what do you mean training? She said, are you going to drama school? I said, no, I'm not going to drama school. I don't think I would get in. She said, well, I think you should go to drama school, and I think you should go to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. I said, and she called it RADA. So when she said RADA, I said, what's RADA? She said, it's the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. I said, I don't think the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts is going to let me in.
And why did you say that?
It's called the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. I was like, I'm not getting into a Royal Academy. That's not happening. It's something, you know, when you're a Black girl in Southwest London or East London, which is where I was at that time, it's very unlikely that you get into these places. You don't even know they exist. So the idea that you can actually get into somewhere that you didn't know existed is impossible. That I had never even heard of that place before. And to know that there was a place that was Royal Academy, that in my head was like, there's no way, I'm not getting in. So why would I even, I'm not getting in. She said that I couldn't do the course if I didn't apply. So she said, come up to my office and apply, or you won't do this course. And I was like, no. She said, well, I'm being really serious. If you don't come up to my office and don't apply to this university and you don't apply to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, you can't come to this course. I was like, fine, I'll apply. We'll see what happens. Out of defiance, didn't apply for anywhere else. I just applied for there. And long story short, I got in. And it sort of like shifted the idea of what was possible for me. Yeah. And to say that, you know, the years at RADA weren't like easy at all, because I think I struggled with trying to both fit in and be myself, and then came to the realization that being myself was probably the best tool I had. Because a lot of drama schools sort of adhere to the break the person down and build them up again. And I actually thought, well, I'd rather just be built up from where I am right now. You know?
Yeah. So, dumb question, because your singing voice is so extraordinary. And you have this incredible ability to marry your singing talent with your with your acting.
Yeah.
So did you just sing in your spare time? Like where did that come from?
I had been singing for a really long time, and I was singing.
I know, since 18 months. Yes, we know.
Yeah, I was singing. I was singing in my spare time. I was doing everything from backing vocals to singing at like nightclubs in London. I would like, for no money, I would just be like, well, if I can sing, wherever the opportunity presented itself.
Right. So you're just doing both at the same time, and you're just honing those skills at the same time. So no eating, sleeping, or drinking, or dating, obviously.
I was running on fumes. I was trying to do as much as I possibly could with what I could do.
Right.
And when I got to RADA, I was lucky enough to bump into a friend who is still a friend today. His name's Michael Pivoy, and he loved musicals. So he would grab all the books from the library that were musical books that had all the songs in them, and we would sneak off to like a room that had a piano in it, and we would sit and we'd sing through all these songs, and from shows I had never seen. So we'd learn everything from Sondheim to Stephen Schwartz. Would learn everything, and it was sort of like a space for me to go to express and share what I had within me and hone it all.
You know, because that's one of the things that I have sort of in my mind that I wanted to ask you, but it seems like this is maybe that process, is how you could even imagine yourself from where you started to where you are now, and it seems like there's nothing you can't do, is what it seems right now. You keep taking on these incredibly ambitious, and I want to talk about Aretha in a moment, and we will. But to me, it's like that's that arc of how, when you get to that point and you can see a very different version of your life, and what it could look like than what would have been mapped out for you in your own mind,
right?
Like how you imagine yourself into becoming the person step by step that you do, and where if there was a turning point, and maybe RADA is that turning point for you.
Yes. You know what? There was a moment at RADA that I think was the turning point for me. 2 moments. I had a lesson. My acting teacher passed away recently. Her name was Dee Cannon, but she became a really good friend. But she was the one that didn't want me to shy away from who I was internally, because there is the trope that comes with being a Black woman, where you have to play the strong Black woman, and that's what I was playing a lot when we were at RADA. And she would, on purpose, give me the most vulnerable player, the most vulnerable role in whatever we would do. And she just kept teaching me that vulnerability is your strong suit. That's the thing that makes me want to watch you, because you have a really wonderful way of honing in on the vulnerability of something, of someone, of what they need, what they are. And I had to really come to terms with that, because I had been doing the opposite. I'd been hiding the vulnerability and playing strong, when actually being strong meant being vulnerable for me. And that might not be the story for everyone, but that really was a turning point for me, because I started seeing the way you play characters differently. I started finding out what it is they wanted, what made them, what kept them up in the middle of the night, what was the thing that they didn't want anyone to know, but what was driving them. And that makes it far more interesting to play than to do what's on the outside. Because what's on the outside is obvious, but often what makes that outside tick is what's happening within, where no one can see. So that was one of the moments. And another moment was when at RADA, I wasn't being cast in some of the big roles in like the big productions. And so again, Michael Peavoy comes along and says, why don't we do like a showcase? So we put the showcase together in the bar with some of the people in our year and some other people who wanted to sing and wanted to just be a part of it. And we put a showcase together for ourselves. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember I was wearing this. It was like a little black dress that was flowy and had lots of movement in it. And I think I did The Miller's Son from Stephen Sondheim. And I jumped on tables and I was moving around the bar, and it was in a bar, but for me, that was my stage. And I everything melted away. I could just be as full as I wanted to be. I could sing, I could act, I could do all of those things as in the way I wanted to. And we invited people to come, and I got my agent that way by just being and showing who I am fully. I really didn't have to hide anything. And it was one of the most exhilarating experiences of my life. And I think it really it told me that when you're fully yourself and when you're fully dropped in, you're open and people can see you.
That's amazing. That's amazing that it was at that moment of crystal clarity.
Yeah.
For you, that you connected to your art or to your muse, and that's the place you want to go as an artist.
Yeah.
But the thing is to go there again and again.
Yeah.
And be vulnerable, as you say. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. So let's talk about Aretha, which is it's all you. I mean, you're probably in every scene except for the ones where there's a lovely, beautiful little girl who's playing Aretha as a child.
Yeah.
You can remind us her name, because
Cheyenne. She's amazing.
Yeah. She sings beautifully too. Before we talk about it, I'd like to just show a quick clip.
Yes.
We looked at the trailer before, but this is just another small clip from Aretha. Let's all take a look.
They don't know that I would leave you if I could. Guess I'm uptight, that I'm stuck like glue. 'Cause I ain't never, no, loved a man the way that I love you.
So that is you, Cynthia, singing as Aretha, as you do throughout the series. Tell us how you felt taking on, for starters, this role.
I felt, one, it was a huge honor to be asked to do it, because she's one of my heroes. She's one of the people who taught me what it was to tell a story through song, not just to sing it.
Yeah.
And then there was sort of this overwhelming sense of responsibility. I wanted to be able to tell this story, not just about the music that she made, but about the person behind it all, about the things that she had gone through that made her who she was and made her able to tell stories the way she did, to sing music the way she did. Because I think sometimes we
write it.
Write it, and find the bravery to want to be credited the way she was credited. The first time she was credited for producers as a producer on her album was during The Amazing Grace, for Amazing Grace, and I think it was 1976. I may be wrong, but it's definitely late 70s. And I think that we take for granted often who the woman was. We know it was the Queen of Soul. We know that her music is incredible. We know her voice is incredible, but we don't realize where all of that comes from. And I think that I felt the responsibility, and I had the need to tell the story about the woman, because I think that that story is really important, that we don't see. I guess I always want to make sure that we see each of the women that I play as full people, not just as who they were in front of the cameras or what they did, but as fully realized human beings who had life and who were moving through life to give the things that they were giving.
Yeah, but she's a very complicated person,
yes,
coming from the church, her relationship with her father, her relationship with the rest of her family. They were all very gifted musically, coming up in the church, and then deciding, I'm not going to be in the church. I'm going to do I'm going to be who I am, which really was quite radical.
It was very radical. And I think it took her some time to find what her place was. And it actually took her moving back to the church and pulling from the things that she knew and learned from there and bringing it into the now, putting it into the music that she would sing, to find out who she was, you know? And I think that is a radical thing and it's a fearless thing to do, because people already expect something of someone like her who comes from the church to stay that way. But if that's not your place, if that's not where you can send out your message, or that's not where you can tell your stories, then it's okay to move. It doesn't mean that you don't believe anymore. It just means that your calling is something different.
Yeah.
To listen to that is brave.
Yeah, I didn't actually know until I saw the series that her father was such a famous minister and such a force in his own right, and that, you know, so much of what she had to do was in reference to him, you know, throughout her life. It was absolutely fascinating and a great performance as well. Yeah. What came first for you when you were taking on a character? Very few people can sing Aretha credibly, and you have to sing it, you know, as Aretha. It's not like, oh, this is Cynthia Erivo's take on Aretha Franklin. You're actually try to credibly. Well, first of all, the singing is just extraordinary.
Thank you.
And so where did you start? Did you start taking apart the character, or did you start sort of practicing, how am I going to sing like Aretha Franklin, as Aretha Franklin?
I think it started from the character. It started from the person. You know, it's listening to the recordings, listening to the choices that she made, listening to interviews and the way she would speak, because she has a certain cadence that's slightly different, and that changes over time as she gets more confident. The way she speaks changes. And when she's singing, I've been listening to her for such a long time that I noticed that there are like tricks that she would have that nobody else would really notice. There are times when, yes, she's full voice and it's big. There are other times where it sounds that way, but actually she's doing almost nothing. It's like it's pulled back and it's quieter than you think it is. And just listening to those choices that really actually helped me to figure out how to use my voice to sing her songs. There's only one Aretha Franklin, and only one person can sound like Aretha Franklin because she's Aretha Franklin. But for me, there was the choice I made was to try and find the nuances and the breaths, the choices that she, the trills, the pauses, the way she would say a certain word, the lilt on a word. Maybe she would go from one note and glide into another in different songs, and that's sort of the things that I was listening to. All the details, the details for me were really helpful. I had a wonderful teacher in Antea Joy Bachette who would sit with me, and we would listen to songs for hours, just breaking it down, working through each little phrase, and just going back and adding, and listening, because that was really the only way to do it. But when you start, I think that when you start finding out who she is and learning who she is at certain times, the music drops in as well. Yeah. When you start to discover who she is, music makes so much more sense.
Yeah. I read somewhere that you got to meet Aretha Franklin.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So the first time I met her was after a show, which was I was doing The Color Purple, and she'd come to see the show
on Broadway.
She was on Broadway, and I didn't know she was there. And I came down, and someone said Aretha Franklin is downstairs and would like to meet you. So I come downstairs, and sure enough, there's Aretha Franklin standing there. And as I walk towards her, she sings the last line of the big song in the show, which is "I'm Here."
I'm here. Yeah.
And I just was astounded, because this is a woman who doesn't have to spend her time doing anything she doesn't want to. And the fact that she stayed and listened and watched the show was kind of incredible. I half think that it was because of Jennifer at that point, because I know that they have a relationship, and
Jennifer Hudson.
Yes. And Jennifer was in the show at that time. But she stayed to meet everyone, and it was really wonderful. And I took a picture with her, and then I met her again at the Kennedy Center Honors. And they had asked me to come and sing something to commemorate the centennial of, I think it's opening, so for John F. Kennedy. And I was singing The Impossible Dream. And I met her just before I started performing, and she remembered who I was from The Color Purple. So that's
cool.
That was really cool. I met her. She was there with Clive Davis, and they were together. And I was just like, this is mind blowing. Okay. And so we get to the performance, and I didn't realize this, but when I watched the performance back, they pan to Aretha, and she's singing along with me. Her eyes are closed, and she's like in the air. And it's one of my favorite things. And I still have that little recording, because it is sort of like it's like a pat on the shoulder, like, well done, you've done good.
Oh my goodness.
Her singing along to me singing The Impossible. I was like, what do they do that?
I saw a clip last night. I was looking up some clips of you and saw your mother with you at the Tonys.
Yeah.
What does she say to you now?
I had a really lovely conversation with her. I felt like it was maybe a year ago. We were in my little apartment in New York, and she was looking at, I had a bookshelf there, and I put my awards on it. So my Tony was there, the Grammy was there, the Emmy was there, and she was looking at it, and she said, because I try and fly her out wherever I am. So she's been to everywhere. So if I've done a show in Japan, she's come out to, I took her out to Japan, and she's come out to LA, she's come to New York. And she said, I never thought that I would have seen all the places that I've seen. Thank you for taking me with you to these places. Thank you for showing me all these places. And and she always sends me off with a prayer, always. She's like, I hope, and she always sends this prayer, regardless of where I am. She is always like, I pray that you have many more blessings and much more abundance in your life. And it always means something, because I think sometimes it drops in to her where she started, where she got to, and where I am right now.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of like I did well. And I always remind her that I'm okay. Like, she doesn't have to worry about me anymore, you know? And I tell her that over and over again, because she's just, you know.
You feel like she worried about you?
She's always worried about me. She can't help it. And I think that the first time she sort of relaxed and went, oh, my daughter's okay, is when we had that conversation where she said, well, thank you. I never thought I would see all these places. So, and it's a wonderful thing to know that you can give something back to your mother, to your parent, when they didn't expect it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk in this event, we talk a lot about mentorship and mentors, and you've mentioned a couple of people, teachers, or this woman who basically forced you to apply to RADA. I don't know if she was formally a mentor, but she's somehow formative for you. But would you say that your mother is your biggest mentor? Like, who is your most important mentor, would you say?
My mother is one of my biggest mentors. I have this group of women who have throughout my life been able to push me forward and just keep helping. And whether it be one piece of advice they give me or just a conversation they have. So my mother is a mentor. The woman who helped me get into drama school, Ray McKen, Dee Cannon, who is my acting teacher. I would say Oprah is a mentor. I remember I got
from The Color Purple, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I remember I got an email from her because I had taken on so much. I was going to everything and doing everything, and I was running on fumes. And she said, I noticed that you're going to a lot of these things. You know, you can say no. And I took it to heart. I took it to heart because I am a person that's like, if it's coming towards you, you can say yes to everything, but you don't have to say yes to everything. Mm-hmm. And if it's supposed to come around again, it will come around again.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so I've had to learn that. And I'm still learning that, because things will come up along and I'm like, oh, I think I want to do that. And I have to remind myself, you are only one person. Do the things you can do now. And whatever you can't do will come around again if it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge learning curve for me. I think most of the women in my life, my best friend, who is not a woman, his name is Capri, and he's very good at reminding me of my worth. He loves me for everything I am. We've known each other for almost 16 years. So he knew me before all of this. And he's still there when I need him. You know, I was in London.
Why do you say that you would even need someone to remind you of your worth? I mean, you've shown everyone what you can do.
I think sometimes I downplay the things I've been able to achieve. I sometimes minimize what's happening, and often that's just sort of a survival technique, because it keeps you going. If you stop and look at the bigness of the things that are going on, it sometimes can be overwhelming. But he often is the person to go, no, Cynthia, this happened. What? Are we really just going to skate past this thing that happened because it's actually incredible? So should we just take a moment to look at it, please? I'm going to. And he'll just pull me up in that way. But at the same time, he'll allow me to still sometimes be like the regular girl that was from East London, and we'll go out and we'll chill out and we'll, you know, have some food in the house and wear our sweats and we'll be like us. And I love that. I love that about him, because he allows me to be all of the things that I am. So this person with you, and then the regular easygoing person from London. Yeah.
Well, what other things do you want to do in your career? Are you interested in continuing to play kind of iconic roles from history? I couldn't believe, by the way, when you did Harriet, that like there hadn't already been a movie about Harriet. I think that's something I discussed with your director, Casey, at the time.
Yeah, there had only been a TV movie and a series, and a couple episodes in a series.
Not enough. Not
enough.
Not enough. And you know, Aretha, this year there's 2 projects on Aretha, actually, with your friend Jennifer Hudson, right?
Which is wonderful, and it's necessary. I do want to play more iconic characters, but it's not. I don't chase them. They sort of, if they come and they're right, then I want to do them. I certainly, but more than anything, I want to keep playing roles that you might not see a woman like me in often, because we exist, you know, like whether it might be the woman who's an espionage expert who happens to be a spy, or it might be a track racer, or it might be someone who is just, you know, a mother trying to make it through, or it might be a woman who's hopelessly in love, or it could be a superhero, or it could be Sarah Forbes-Bonetta, which is what I think one of the projects that we're doing, who was, for all intents and purposes, a princess. It could be anything, just as long as it gives me the space to introduce a woman in the fullest way possible. That is what I want to play.
And you said that you're starting to think about producing, or are you starting to produce?
I'm starting to produce. I have a company, Edith's Daughter. We have a very full slate. So hopefully in the next year or so, some of those projects will be, you know, on your screens and coming to fruition. And
so whether you're playing the main role or not.
Playing or not, yeah. And that's really a wish of mine, to be able to create things that I don't have to be in, that I can create space for other people.
And why is that? Why is that important to you?
Because I don't think there's enough, there isn't enough yet for faces that look like mine. And I want to be one of those spaces that they can come to, you know, and I get to play in this world, and I want to use the space that I've been given to give to others. You know, I think it's important that there's no point going forward and up if you can't reach back and go, hey, come with me. And that's what I want to do.
Well, Cynthia Erivo, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing so candidly your past, your present, your hopes for the future. You're truly an inspiring person, and I want to thank you for the performances that you've given us, which get to live forever.
Thank you.
But also thank you for just sharing with us today the person behind all those performances. I think it's wonderful for us to learn from you and to understand all the layers that come with that success. It's quite inspiring. Thank you for being at the Bee Conference.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's Sharon Waxman, the editor of The Wrap. I hope you've enjoyed the first 2 days of the Bee Conference. I hope you've learned a lot, met some friends, and grown your potential, which is what this is all about. If you've enjoyed the past 2 days, I wanted to invite you to join us on day 3. You can upgrade your ticket for specialized workshops. We've got 16 of them, and personalized mentorship with some incredible women. You can check out those sessions at the BeeCon website that's listed on your screen. But also, I wanted to ask you guys to mark your calendars we are announcing for the first time here that the Power Women Summit will be back in December 7th through 9th. That's our big kahuna event. It's one you don't want to miss. We had more than 1 million women who live streamed on that event last year. So please do join us. You can find out more about that multi-day conference at WrapWomen.com. And here you go. Here's a little sneak peek at last year's event. We know you're going to want to join us. Welcome to the Power Women Summit Inclusion 360. 3 remarkable days of discussion, debate, performance, inspiration, mentorship, and connection.
This voice and the voice of so many others like me have to be represented.
We know that in order for change to be real, to be effective, it has to include everyone.
It's a heavy moment because there's so many things that need to happen and you can't fix them all magically. Systemic racism is just that, it's systemic.
Stop picking up his bloody gloves to reference OJ because I am old like that. Set yourself free and find a strength that you never knew you had.
I'm very excited to be here with a longtime friend of the Wrap, Regina King. Welcome, Regina.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
Technology enables us to be even more equitable and inclusive, and that we'll never go back to doing things the way we did.
While cancel culture has become very toxic, it has been an amazing tool to wake people up, to make them realize that you can't just put an apology on your notes app online, that you are pressured to actually come back and be and do better and be accountable and responsible.
We are the voice. We are free. We can speak the truth. Nobody can stop us.
Thank you. Woo, my bunions, they hurting. I'm sorry. It's a wrap. No, it is. It's a wrap. Love y'all. Gotta go.